Prepare yourself for the terror. The prison of madness, where few enter and none return.
Welcome to Unsung Horrors. With Lance. And Erica.
Leave all your sanity behind. It can't help you now.
Welcome to a bonus episode of Unsung Horrors. This is a Horror Gives Back bonus episode, and I'm Lance.
I'm Erica.
And yeah, this episode is for our second annual Horror Gives Back challenge. What that means is we have 31 categories that we've set for the month of October, and we post these categories for, listeners or anybody to jump in and create their own watch lists and donate to a fundraiser.
Yeah.
We picked the Trevor Project this year.
Mm-hmm. It was a great cause.
Yes.
And it was great because we did have some people who were following the list. We had some people who followed some of the list, and we had some people who didn't follow at all, but still participated in Horror Gives Back and donated to the Trevor Project, which was really awesome.
Yes.
We ended up doubling what goal we set. I was like, I don't know, we raised like 300 or 400 last year. Let's just go for 500. But this year we raised $1,183.
That's insane.
Yes.
Thank you so much to everybody who, participated, shared the hashtag, Horror Gives Back hashtag, especially those who donated.
Yeah. So. Especially to you. But so we've got a number of shout outs, and then Lance and I are going to go through our picks for each of the categories. All right. So I'm going to start off by giving a shout out to Flea Marked on Instagram. He let me know that he was on My Bloody Horror Cast, and they did an episode even before October started, going through all of their picks for each category. So they actually followed all of them
awesome.
Along with that. And I know that Klon's made a donation as well. So thank you for that. A lot of great picks in that episode too. And then also Lisa from the Bad Movie Bunny podcast also shared her picks on her show in two parts. So she did day 1 through 15, and then part 2, days 16 through 31. You can find both of those podcasts wherever you listen to podcasts, but I'll also put links to those shows in show notes. Then we have the folks who were sharing their picks on Instagram and Twitter. Erica from Les Represent podcast, Robert from the Film Flamers, Chaos from They Mostly Podcast at Night, Robert, fan of Saga on Twitter. He was sharing them in kind of bulk. He would just screenshot his Letterboxd and be like week 1, week 2 kind of thing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Also Lisa from the Bad Movie Bunny podcast. And Anna Grassblade on Twitter. And then our donors. So first shout out by himself and goes to Josh Turning Green on Twitter. He donated $5 per movie, so $155.
That's amazing, Josh.
Yeah. But I wanted to give him also a special shout out because he's also the inspiration for this challenge, because he did something similar for F This Movie's Junesploitation last year, which is how I was like, oh, we should do that for October. And so I let him know we were doing that he was the inspiration for it. He was like, that's awesome. I'm going to donate before October even starts. So thank you, Josh. Yeah. Then we had 2 anonymous donations. So I don't know who to thank for it, but feel free to DM us and let us know who you were so we can say thank you. We had one for 40, one for 150, another for 155. And then our other donors were Micah Lindsay. Thank you, Micah. Mm-hmm. Cody, Lance's twin brother.
Thanks, Cody.
Austin Green, Matt Clark, Henry Davies, Josh Kalin from the Arcade Castle, Mike Lawson, Chaos from the Mostly Podcast at Night, Robert from the Film Flamers, Tad from Attack of the Killer podcast and First Time podcast, and Robert Prudham. So thank you, everybody. And also I did sort of an impromptu drawing. We had some Blu-rays and a pin and magnet and stuff to give away. I did a drawing. And Robert Prudham was the winner of that. So I sent him a little prize package as a thank you for participating and donating.
Yes.
So we'll definitely be doing this again next year. So if you missed out on this, don't worry. We'll be back around for this same time next year.
What are we going to set our goal for?
I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, that's something we'll think about.
We'll think about it. We'll see where our followers and listenership is at. We'll make sure we haven't been canceled because, inevitably, if we're going to get canceled, it's going to be something I said. So we'll see where we're at. Got plenty of time to think about that. In the meantime, we have 31 categories to get through. So that's 62 movies to talk about. So let's jump right in. First category is Roger Corman. Lance, what did you do?
Okay, so I went with Creature from the Haunted Sea from 1961. So this is funny. I found it on Tubi. It's an extremely dark quality, but might be the only way to see it, the black and white version of the film. I don't know if there's another out there. And if there was ever a 1960s trash horror odyssey book out there, this would be in it. It's very DIY. It's early Roger Corman, so it's obviously low budget. There's an amazing lead in it named Sparks Moran, who's also the narrator, and he's played by Robert Towne. And Robert Towne went on to write Chinatown.
Yeah.
And, the Mission Impossibles 1 and 2, Bonnie and Clyde. And he is hilarious in it. I didn't look into it, but this might be like his only main acting role. But it starts off very spy thriller with like all these undercover agents. One goes out to sea undercover as a crew member to stop a heist that's going to be taking place. Then it just gets super silly with this creature from the haunted sea. The original score is really great. Fred Katz, he just goes hard with his hip, jazzy, drum-filled solos. He's known to do a bunch of Corman movies like A Bucket of Blood, Little Shop of Horrors,
nice.
The Wasp Woman. So if you've seen those, you kind of know what kind of jazz score you're getting into. The screenwriter, Charles B. Griffith, who another Corman regular, Death Race 2, Bucket of Blood, did a bunch of them. But he creates some of the strangest characters and the deadpan humor that I've seen like crammed into 63 minutes. It's a real short movie.
Yeah.
I can't help but think like the Zuckers must consider this a massive inspiration because the characters, they almost become too much because they're just so committed to being campy and hilarious.
Yeah.
It's way more comedy than horror. The monster's terrible. Basically a man with like a bucket on his head with like eyes glued on and fake moss. But I loved it. He looked a bit like those Martians from, was it Sesame Street? The yip, 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 yip.
Oh,
yip,
yeah.
Yip, that's what he looked like when he popped up. I was like, this is perfect.
That's all I'm going to hear for the next hour and a half is.
But I do recommend it. I mean, you know me, everybody. I'm going to recommend. I'm really happy with all my picks.
Okay.
So
Well, I mean, it helps when
we can create our own list.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So Creature from the Haunted Sea. It's on Tubi. Recommend it. 1960.
Okay. Don't worry, folks. I'm not going to be nice to every movie. We just
wait
can't
till we get
that.
to Scarecrow, right?
Oh my God. That's where I'm. All right.
Yes.
So Roger Corman for me, I did Tower of London, 1962. I mean, I also picked it because Vincent Price is also, for me, a great way to kick off October.
Hell
it just gets you in that mood. So for those who don't know, this is the story of, well, loosely, the story of Richard III. And he is Vincent Price is playing Richard III. He is absolutely hamming it up as him, as he does. He's haunted by ghosts of all the people he kills in order to get to the throne, including two of his two young nephews, which common theme throughout my picks is going to be child murder, because I was like, I got to knock some of these off my list. So that was kind of my strategy. I was like, okay, first time watch and doesn't have child murder. So majority of my picks have that.
That's a good format.
Multitasking. Yeah. So that one was on YouTube. I think it was actually as a double feature with something else on there. So it was like a 2.5 hour runtime on YouTube because it had two movies back to back on.
Both Corman?
I don't remember what the other one is. It probably was. So, all right. And then our next category was sequel. I did Alien 2 on Earth. Not Aliens, but the Italian unofficial sequel to Alien, Alien 2 on Earth, 1980. This is on YouTube. And this is my new favorite spelunking horror movie. So move over, The Descent. It's, like I mentioned, it's Italy's unofficial sequel to Alien. It doesn't follow the original at all. There's no time in space spent. It's actually there on Earth, hence the title. The chest burster is an eye burster instead. It infects you because it's in these blue rocks that somehow fell to Earth or came onto Earth for some reason. Plot's unclear, folks. It's an Italian horror movie. Guess what? But there's these blue rocks that the alien thing sort of comes out of them, including gets at a child who eye bursts.
Nice.
So it has a Jaws score ripoff. It's got a great decapitation. It's got, Michele Suave is in it as Bert. He's the sensitive writer. He even brings his typewriter down into the cave while they're spelunking to type his poetry. And a psychic who's part of the whole spelunking team because they're going down there to investigate. And there's the really great decapitation. I don't want to ruin it. I'll probably throw it in like a clip or something like that. But it's from someone who's hanging upside down, so it's even better.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Do the aliens are they complete ripoffs from Geiger's?
There's like one part where it looks like a chest burster, but like the full.
Like Xenomorphs?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
not at all. They didn't have the budget for that. So
Right.
nothing like that. Now, I will warn folks, there are lots of slow parts. There's one part in particular where somebody fell down and there's a pan of the whole body and it starts at the feet and it goes very, very slowly all the way up to the face for anything. And it's like, I was almost tempted to hit fast forward, but then I was fascinated with how long is this going to actually take? A lot of slow parts, but the gore is fun. It's goofy. I would definitely recommend it for Italian horror fans, but probably nobody else
Okay.
because everyone else will be like, "What the fuck is this?" But it's got a beautiful setting. It was filmed in, I actually looked it up, Castellana Grotto in Italy, where they actually have these caves and everything. So
Oh, cool.
It's beautiful. Sequel for you.
Sequel for me, I went with Warlock, the Armageddon. Yes. So, okay, my strategy was kind of the same, first time watches. I'm still kind of fixated on a 90s, horror thing.
Sure.
And so I pulled a lot of 90s in there, but also a lot of them that were on my shelf. I didn't own Armageddon, but
You don't own this movie, Lance? How dare you?
I don't.
I don't even own the first one. I don't actually mind the first one though. When it's charming.
It is charming, but I'll tell you what, the Armageddon from 1993 is charming as hell too.
Really?
Yeah, so
Okay.
it's the sequel to the Steve Miner directed original. This one's directed by Anthony Hickox, who directed Hellraiser 3.
Yeah.
And the first two Waxworks.
Oh God, why do I know that he directed Hellraiser 3? That's the worst one. Not the worst one, but anyway. Sorry.
No, it's cool. But the Warlock, who's played again by Julian Sands, who's just chewing the scenery on everything. But he's reborn during a lunar eclipse, and he's basically Thanos searching for 5 rune stones in 6 days to unleash Armageddon on the world. And there's this group of random guardian druids. They're all pretty old, to stop the evil that will be unleashed. They know of what the Warlock's capable of, and they're kind of prepared for this. And then one of the druid's son is found to be a druid warrior. It's in his blood. He's born, and there's like these training sessions, kind of like Yoda and Luke, learning the Force from Star Wars. It's just terrible stuff.
All right.
Bruce Glover's in it.
Hey.
Yeah, he plays another Reverend Priest character, just like in Night of the Scarecrow. Kind of the same, made a couple of years apart, so he looks exactly the same. I wouldn't be surprised if it's the exact same suit that he just wears around.
Yeah.
And it kind of feels like a Jeff Burr film, which is a compliment. Who did Night of the... Because it's very 90s. George Buck Flower plays an angry townsman in the background, so whenever he pops up, it's exciting. But again, like Night of the Scarecrow, it has an amazing mix of practical effects. But given that it's 1993, you have to throw in some really shitty CGI.
Of course.
And the CGI, the particular scenes, kind of like in part 1, it's when the Warlock is flying around.
Oh God.
And he flies a lot in this sequel. But the practical effects, I'm not going to give much away, but there's this birth scene where the Warlock is reborn that looks great. It kind of reminded me of Lilith being born in the beginning of Night Angel.
Okay.
Just kind of really kind of gross, slimy, KY jelly everywhere. There's a hilarious dog death in the first 10 or so minutes.
Aww.
It's fake, but it's funny.
Okay.
But this whole thing, I really enjoyed it. It gave me Trancers vibes.
You and your Trancers.
I know, and mainly because there's a lot of change in sceneries, like from centuries. Like there's old scenes jumping back. To like knights and stuff and kings, which Trancers does a couple times.
Yeah.
But it's just full on 90s horror. I really enjoyed it. I think I watched it on Tubi.
Okay. So can I ask this? If Warlock is flying a lot in this, does it carry from the first one? Because in order for Warlock to fly, he has to make a potion. And in order to do that, he has to kill a unbaptized child and boil their skin and drink that to make his potion. Does child murder in Warlock 2?
No, this one's kind of it's very just straightforward. Like he has way more powers.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
It doesn't even have like that. I remember in part 1, there's kind of like that cool little compass thing that they set up. There's none of that. I mean, all these druids are in place. They know exactly where he is, what's happening. The backstory kind of in the beginning kind of sets it all up.
Okay.
It's still fun though, but no child death.
Well, that's fine. I mean, the first one has it. So fun true crime fact for folks. There was a Canadian boy, 14 years old. After Warlock came out, he watched it 10 times. And he murdered a 10-year-old boy and boiled his skin because he wanted to make his own flying potion to fly.
Did it work?
No, but he did. He flew to the psychiatric hospital.
Oh, well, maybe he did it wrong. We'll try it. Okay, so day 3.
Yeah.
Horror anthology. I went with actually another Roger Corman pick.
Okay.
Tales of Terror from 1962. This is, again, puts you in the Halloween spirit because it's Vincent Price starring in all 3 short stories. They're all Poe tales, adaptations of Edgar Allan Poe. It also has Peter Lorre and Basil Rathbone in it. I love Basil Rathbone. And everybody is clearly just having a blast, particularly Price, who's just, again, hamming it up in every single scene and character he's in. The first segment is called Morella, which is about Vincent Price's wife who died a long time ago, and he blames his own daughter for the death.
Okay.
She comes back home. They kind of figure everything out. That was probably my least favorite, but again, all of them are really fun. But the next one is just a humorous take on The Black Cat, which is starring Peter Lorre as the very drunk Montresor. And Price plays this character, super suave. His name's Fortunato. And he's like this renowned wine taster. You might have seen there's some clips out there where he takes a sip of a wine and he swishes it around.
Oh, yeah.
He's all, just a little too long.
Yeah.
And it just, when he does this as wine tasting scenes, I mean, I was laughing out loud. I don't LOL that much. You know, sometimes I'll force laugh, but this was like legit.
Yeah.
Scaring people in my house and stuff. But yeah, he and Lori are just kind of trying to outdo each other. And it's just really fun to watch. And then the last one is The Case of M. Valdemar. And that's with Basil Rathbone. And Rathbone's real sinister in it, which is always fun to watch. He plays this hypnotist who mesmerizes the dying Vincent Price on his deathbed. And the purpose of this is kind of to ease and possibly extend his life, but he extends his death because Price dies on his bed.
Mm-hmm.
But he's still alive. He can still communicate. And it becomes really weird because Rathbone tries to like persuade Price's decaying body to have Price's widow, his wife, marry him because he's like completely infatuated with her. It gets really creepy, but this one felt the most Halloween out of, I kind of watched a lot of these out of order.
Yeah, same.
But this one felt very much Halloween. So I recommend everybody adding it to their October watch list. I have to point out the score, Les Baxter's score. He did Baba's Black Sabbath. Pretty much, he did all the Corman Poe movies too, Les Baxter. But his scores always put me like in this kind of October, autumn vibe. So love his stuff. Love this movie. It was one of my favorite of the month. Tales of Terror. I forgot where I watched it. I mean, there's a lot of movies that we watched, and I did not take note of where it was, but it was definitely streaming somewhere. It might have been like YouTube or something.
Okay. So anthology for me, and a lot of what I'm going to talk about isn't necessarily what I posted that I was going to be watching.
Same.
Because either I was like, well, it's a rewatch, or I didn't actually get around to watching it, or I didn't like it. And I'm trying to limit the negativity on this one. Like I've got a few. I know,
okay.
I still have a few. I can't not go through and not have a rant when we have episodes like this. So I ended up watching Torture Garden, 1967. I actually have had the Indicator Blu-ray sitting on my shelf for a while and finally got around to watching it. It is directed by Freddie Francis, the whole thing. And so it's got Dr. Diabolo, who is running like this sort of carnival sideshow, and he brings in a group of people to meet this fortune teller lady mannequin. And she's got these huge scissors or shears. And every time she opens it and you stare at them, then you see something like you see that person's story.
Okay.
And then every time the shears close really quickly, then their story ends. So it's got 4 stories total. The first one that has a cat in it, and then the last one with Jack Palance and Peter Cushing are the best ones. The Jack Palance and Peter Cushing one is my favorite because they're both like Poe fanatics, and Palance is like visiting Peter Cushing and his collection of all this stuff that he has. And they're just sort of like geeking out over Poe for forever. It's cute. The middle 2 ones, which focus on the middle 2 stories, which focus on the 2 women who are in the group, they're okay. But I mean, there's like a killer piano one, so I guess that one was kind of okay, but still not super great. It's all about, and when you throw Peter Cushing in, that's automatically going to be the best segment, I guess. So
well, together with Jack Palance sounds great.
Oh yeah, it was fantastic. He came up in actually another movie that was a last minute switch for me too that I really enjoyed later in the episode.
I got a Freddie Francis on my list too.
Nice. All right, so Anthology Torture Garden 1967 has an indicator Blu-ray. Next is Insects. And just a reminder to folks, I know I posted this on Instagram, but I just want to remind folks that Slugs is a Halloween movie, just for anybody who, please, just, I'm every Halloween movie, 1 through 20, Trick or Treat, Hocus Pocus, please just mix it up a little bit. I'm begging you. But my pick was The Swarm from 1978. Directed by the master of disaster, Irwin Allen, who's more known for producing disaster movies like Poseidon Adventure, Towering Inferno, things like that. So he directed this. And it takes 2.5 hours to figure out how to kill some bees in The Swarm. So the idea, there's these Africanized, I don't think that's the PC term anymore. Sorry if I'm getting canceled for that, but that was the term used in the movie, so that's the term I'm using. Killer bees that obviously they're killing people. But if you get stung only once or twice, you just start hallucinating. Like it affects your, like the toxin or whatever. And so if you look up pictures of it, and I think I even posted this, there's like Michael Caine sitting there and there's this giant fucking bee like right next to him. And I'm like, what is this nightmare fuel? And that's basically anybody who gets only stung once or twice is just hallucinating, and they see the giant bees like knocking at their door or hanging out over their, bed or something. It's not good. I'm not trying to sell this movie because it's 2.5 fucking hours long.
Well, why did she? Is her child's?
Yes. Oh, yeah. 8 kids die in a playground. They get stung by the swarm of bees. So yeah, this was a child kill movie on my list, and so I was like, okay, well, I'm going to put up with 2.5 hours, and I finally got 8 kids. So
I guess that makes sense. I mean, because like the Poseidon Adventure, those are all like huge, like really long movies.
They are, but Poseidon Adventure like moves like that. That movie, like I don't feel the length on that movie. And Towering Inferno has Steve McQueen, so I'm going to watch 4 hours of that. But
here's a little Peter Cushing fun fact: when I read his memoirs, the Poseidon Adventure was one of his favorite movies of all time.
He's a smart man. So here's my biggest problem with it, though, is that eventually the way that they figure out how to kill them, and I'm sorry, spoiler for the 2.5 hour Swarm, I don't think anyone's going to watch this. They eventually figure out how to kill them by using a sound that mimics a mating vibration to lure them to the Gulf of Mexico, where they have dumped a bunch of oil into the Gulf of Mexico and are going to set it on fire. So they had this whole message earlier in the film, like, well, why can't we use pesticides? And Michael Caine's like, oh, because you'll kill the regular honeybees and the other pieces of the environment and whatever. Environmental message out the window, because like, let's just fucking set the Gulf of Mexico on fire.
I mean, it's filled with oil right now anyway.
I mean, now, but this was 1978 where there was still hope for the planet. And,
not to sound conceited or like I'm really scientific here, but my first instinct for any type of like disaster that involves animals or insects, some sort of combative way to stop it would be something regarding a mating call. Have we thought about a mating call here? That's what I would bring up. Just seems like
I mean, yeah. You remember when Planet Earth came out and like that one bird that did like with the big flourishy blue black tail and was like dancing all over the place. And I was like, holy shit, this is amazing. Like just do that to like every animal. Just like do some mating.
It works on humans. I mean, I'm like dying over here. I could spend the rest of my life watching that.
So that was Insects for me. I don't recommend The Swarm unless, you're a child murder completist like I am. What about you?
Okay, for insects. So I posted this. I share, like we said earlier, I did share daily on Twitter. A lot of these people that might follow me, I may have made posts, but I've changed it last minute. I posted this one, ticks from 1993.
Oh, and you got called out because those aren't
I got
insects.
called out. So, okay, Amber, if you're listening, I know that they're not technically insects, but I would. This is unsung horrors. This.
Yeah.
You could have picked Starship Troopers or something.
Oh, that's true.
The Mist. I mean, so ticks is officially allowed. I'm calling it. You said slugs. They're probably not.
They're
legit.
not. Yeah, and so like a lot of people did spiders, and those are not insects.
Right.
So it's fair. The category our fault should have been creepy crawlies. Sorry.
And there's a quote in the film that says ticks are the vampires of the insect world. This is in the movie. But I did feel bad, and I did watch Corman's The Wasp Woman after.
Okay.
It. But I'm talking about ticks.
Okay.
This is directed by Tony Randall. Just waiting for. He directed Hellraiser 2: Hellbound. I thought maybe you would have pulled that.
Oh, because you corrected to Randall, and so I was like,
yeah, sorry.
What? Okay, so yeah, Tony Randall.
And this is a Brian Usna production, so I was expecting some gross effects, which I got.
Nice.
A fun cast. Clint and Rance Howard are both in here.
Heyo.
Seth Green plays the main kid. Carlton from Fresh Prince. He plays this wannabe kind of gangbanger named Panic, because he never does.
Oh.
Yeah, that's his nickname, Panic. Kind of exactly what you'd expect this movie to be. It's like this 90s, very 90s, kids in the woods battling mutant ticks. Kind of think Tremors, but ticks. That's what I kind of kept going back to.
Okay.
It has some awesome Doug Beswick visual effects. Another fair warning, there is a brutal dog death in this one. So there's this one character, or her name's Dr. Kate, and she probably has like 2 minutes of screen time. Basically, somebody kills a huge tick, they're like the size of your fist, brings it in, and she kind of examines it for a few minutes. And the actress was Judy Jean Burns, who I had never seen before, but her performance was so amazing in those few minutes. Yeah, I was like, okay. I have to watch every movie she's in. And she doesn't have a whole lot of acting credits, but if anybody's watched Ticks, let me know if you feel the same about Dr. Kate, because I was completely captivated by her. Yeah, Ticks is a lot of fun. I mean, I enjoyed it. I know they're not insects. I did watch The Wasp Woman. It's not as good as Ticks. And Ticks has a Vinegar Syndrome release.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that. I'm going to pick it up because I think John might have got that with his subscription, so I don't need to. But I haven't seen this since I was a kid, and I don't remember any of it. Which is rare for me when it comes to bug horror, because that's one thing that bothers me. So
I know you don't like moths.
Don't get me started on them.
Well, I'm going to bring something up later in here about moths.
Why would you do that?
Because we watched this movie. This was a same pick.
Okay. Oh,
and I have a question about one of the heads.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Ticks is also on Tubi, but I do recommend the Vinegar Syndrome. I haven't picked it up, but I'm going to pick up a bunch of stuff during the Black
Friday sale. Yeah.
Thank you, Cody, for giving me a Vinegar Syndrome gift card for my birthday. I'm very excited to spend it.
Nice job, Cody.
Okay, going on to day 4. Animals. Grizzly.
Yeah.
I had never seen Grizzly before. From 1976, directed by the great William Girdler, who we've talked about in past episodes. Abby, Day of the Animals, Sheba Baby. Complete Jaws ripoff. It has all the equivalent characters. Christopher George is pretty much the Roy Scheider character playing the park ranger, and he is damn good in this.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Christopher George just, I want to watch it again right now. But I love the opening because it's this uplifting music. It feels like we're getting ready to kind of enter Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. Just eat all the candy we want, have a good time. It's like this family fun adventure. Then an 18-foot bear pops up and starts tearing people apart.
Yeah.
So I love it. One thing I loved was the grizzly bear point of view camera shots. Mm-hmm. So this is 1976. This is before Myers and Voorhees and all the slashers burst into the scene. And I feel like, losing Girdler, we talked about this, I think, during the Blu-ray episode when I was talking about Abby, but losing him at such a young age when he was just pumping out all these great movies.
Yeah.
Is just a complete bummer to think about, because I could see influence in just as few movies, movies being made today, especially horror movies. I mean, those 9 films he directed in the 7 years, they're just all a blast. But there is a sequel out there, Grizzly 2, Revenge,
Yeah.
which was originally filmed in 1983, but wasn't released until 2020. And it has cameo appearances by George Clooney, Laura Dern, and Charlie Sheen. Nathan from I Hope You Suffer podcast, he pointed out, like, don't do it. Like,
Yeah. And if he says don't do it, then you know it's bad.
yeah, but I'm going to do it.
Oh, God.
I don't know. Yeah, I haven't really looked for it though to see if it's like streaming anywhere. But Grizzly has a Severin release. It is streaming too, also on Tubi. But yeah, I can't recommend this enough. I mean, all the William Girdler movies I've seen, I just love.
He's great.
What do you got for animals?
So I know the one that I posted about was Prey, 2016,
Oh, yeah.
or Uncaged, about a killer lion on the loose. And the CGI in this is so bad, I don't want to talk about this movie.
What year was it?
2016.
Oh, yeah.
It's bad. Well, and the director is Dick Moss, who I really like. Amsterdam. He remade his own movie. I can't remember which is which. It was The Lift, about a killer elevator.
Oh, cool. I like it.
And then he remade it. That was the original. And then he remade it into a movie called Down. So he remade his own movie. I watched Killer Crocodile 1 and 2, and The Leopard Man 1943. And the Killer Crocodile movies are super fun. Leopard Man was great. Uncaged, aka Prey, was awful. Like, it's so the CGI is so bad, it's distracting. Like, I didn't even feel bad about the lion dying, because, and normally, like, any animal death, I'm like, eh.
But it looked like
It looked
the
so
dog
bad.
from Toy Story.
It just, it just looks so bad that I was like, it's so not real to me that it doesn't mean, this means nothing to me. So my actual pick, and this is kind of connected to yours, because you said you did a Jaws ripoff. This is not technically a Jaws ripoff, but I feel like it's something that not a lot of people know exists. So I did want people to be aware of it, and that's why I'm bringing it up. And this is normally something that I watch in July, because it's the Jaws Sharksploitation edit.
Oh, yeah. I saw you post something like you watched that.
Yeah. So when I rewatched it, I think I made a tag of it, like Sharksploitation edit. So for folks who don't know, the Jaws Sharksploitation edit is 80 to 90% Jaws, with scenes from Part 2, Jaws: The Revenge, The Last Shark, and Orca spliced into it to make a whole new movie. It's mostly the same, but it's also got this funky 70s soundtrack. So, like, the scene where Quint shows up to the town meeting, like, his entrance, like, they show his, like, platform boot coming out of the truck, and, like, this funky 70s music going on, and he walks in, and, like, it's great.
So it's all they don't pull in any new characters from the other movies. It's just Jaws with
those 4 other movies, cool, like, stuff looped in. And so, and the reason that they pull in a couple of parts from Jaws 2 is clear, because the ending of this one is completely different, and it's fantastic. And I will not spoil it for anyone. I will put a link to it in show notes. It's on Archive. And I definitely recommend it. If you want to watch it right away, sure. If not, save it for 4th of July, because the 4th of July beach scene in this one is fucking chaos. They add blood to it. It's super fun. So the Jaws Sharksploitation edit is my animals pick.
Awesome.
And then also it's only an hour and 40 as opposed to 2 hours, which, I mean, Jaws never feels its length, but it's an hour and 40. So it's less of a time commitment too. All right, so Italy, I did The Red Monks, 1988. I watched this one on YouTube. This is directed by Gianna Martucci. Fulci's name is on it as a producer, but he apparently has said that he was not involved with it at all. His name just got tacked onto it. This is one of the late 80s TV movies. So Robert and Ramona, they meet quickly and get married. She's, like, on his property or something, and they have, like, a meet cute and end up getting married. She moves into his house and finds out that he's part of some cult, and there's, like, these monks living in the basement, and they need a virgin sacrifice. So even though they're newly married, he won't sleep with her. Yeah, this was beginning of the month, so I'm trying to remember. I know it didn't have a lot of gore at all. I think it had one good decapitation in it. It almost felt like more of a drama. Like, it didn't feel like a horror movie at all. It's pretty forgettable. I don't think I would recommend it. It's not one of the late 80s Italian hidden gems out there.
Okay.
So Red Monks, nah.
No.
Yeah.
Don't recommend.
Yeah. What about you for Italy?
I picked Nightmare Castle from 1965, aka The Night of the
Love.
Doomed. Starring the always captivating Barbara Steele, who we'll get to later. She's one of the Horror Gives Back categories. Directed by Mario Caiano. But yeah, Barbara Steele's in it. She plays two roles in this. It's about a jealous husband who tortures and kills his wife and her lover. Then his wife's stepsister gets everything in her will, so the husband ends up marrying her so he can get everything. And the sister starts having these strange dreams as she's living in this house that she's possessed by her dead sister who is out to get revenge on her murdering husband. So Nightmare Castle, I loved it. I think it's a bit tedious just watching it, but the remaster, I picked up the remastered and restored 7 release from years ago, and it just looks, everything's so beautiful. It just kept my eyes glued to the screen. Plus, this is Morricone's first horror film score.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
I didn't realize that until I was kind of reading up on it. But it's amazing as usual. He gives us a lot of pipe organ, which is, not very common for Morricone. So Nightmare Castle, 1965. I feel like I might be the last person who has seen this, so everybody knows it's worth watching. Made for TV. Here we go. This is a fun category. I went with A Cold Night's Death from 1973. I'd had this one on my watch list for a while, mainly because I thought it'd make a good episode, like a potential, because it has it only has a few hundred views. Directed by Gerald Friedman. This was an Aaron Spelling production in an ABC Tuesday Movie of the Week back in 1973. And it's about this facility called Tower Mountain Research Station in the Antarctic, with a crew working on space program researching animals like chimpanzees and stuff. Basically, it's a 2-person cast. Robert Culp and
I love him.
Well, yeah, he's so great, and so is Eli Wallach. 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 They're both basically it's just them two in this confined area, and the previous researcher that was at this facility was found dead for kind of these unknown reasons. And I don't really want to give too much away because it's just this psychological, total atmosphere, kind of character study between these two guys. They basically start seeing things and encountering things in this facility, and they kind of blame each other, but neither one of them are doing it. And all the while, like, these chimpanzees are just kind of going nuts in the cages. So that doesn't give too much away, but it's my review on Letterboxd was it's a solid, deliberately paced, made-for-TV psychological thriller. And while it may draw some comparisons with Carpenter's The Thing due to the isolated Arctic setting, Culp and Wallach go hard, moving the paranoia and tension along nicely. I would really like to see this get cleaned up and released at some point.
So many TV movies need that. There's so many good ones.
Yeah, I feel like maybe we should go into business and just try something, Erica. Just focus in on made for TV.
I mean, there have been some coming out like this last year or so. Like Amanda's been doing commentaries left and right. So there's more coming out. I'm selfishly, they're not the ones I want.
Right. I mean, they're good. Everything is worth, remastered. Not everything, but the stuff they've been releasing has been really great.
Yeah. So made for TV for me, I watched 4. I'm not going to talk about all of them. I made that promise last episode. I'm not going to talk about 90 fucking movies, even though I could. I won't. I will talk about 2 though. All right. So don't go to sleep 1982. I'm only bringing this up because this is possibly, I know you've seen this.
Yes.
This is possibly my new favorite TV movie.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Ruth Gordon as the grandmother in this. It's got a killer kid, and it's got a child death with a kid falling off a roof and then a smash cut to a watermelon breaking open. It's fantastic. This movie's mean for a TV movie, and I like it.
It's very mean, very bleak.
So anyway, that's my new favorite TV movie of all time is Don't Go to Sleep.
That's the one where the dad is watching baseball in the tub.
Yes.
And drinking martinis.
Oh, yeah.
I remember that. I was like, that is the life right there.
But my actual pick is The Strange Possession of Mrs. Oliver, 1977. This is stacked. So written by Richard Matheson, directed by Gordon Hessler,
Okay.
who's we've talked about before. Old Blonde Box, Pray for Death.
Pray for Death, yeah.
Starring Karen Black and George Hamilton. There's parts of it where the score is the slow piano tinking of Venus, Frankie Avalon's Venus. It's really good. So it's basically Karen Black plays a bored housewife. She starts dressing up as another woman and starts taking on that woman's characteristics, not knowing that she actually has some type of connection to this woman who she's dressing up as. It's a tight thriller, clocks in at about 75 minutes. I would highly recommend it. I loved it. This is another one. I'm like, please clean it up. I want a beautiful release of this. I loved it.
Yeah.
This is one of my favorites of the month. And Don't Go to Sleep. Both of those TV movies for the win this month.
Yeah, Don't Go to Sleep was, again, me trying to figure out like next picks for the podcast. Because there's so many good made-for-TV options out there that are just underseen.
Yeah. When we do, we'll have to work it around and try and get Amanda on for when
sure.
we do one of those. Yeah. Is it me? Right?
It's you.
Okay. All right. Christopher Young. Speaking of great scores, actually, I don't remember the score in this movie. Anyway, I did Hider in the House, 1989. And
yeah, I haven't seen it, but I've seen the poster. It's just like, okay, that's terrifying.
It's Gary Busey just like staring in the window. Like, imagine looking out the window right here. All of a sudden, Gary Busey's face is like pressed up against the window.
Terrifying. Just put that on the screen for an hour and a half, and goddamn.
I mean, I just tell you the plot, and that's like the scariest part of it. Gary Busey's hiding in your attic. He wants to take the dad's place, obviously. You know, he's just been let out of a mental institution, and he finds this house, and he was like, oh, this is a really nice house. But then he realizes this family is moving in. So he builds himself, he walls off a section of the attic and like makes it so like he's hidden like in the attic, essentially.
Right.
It runs a bit long. It's just under 2 hours long, but it also has one of our favorite people ever in it. Bruce Glover is in it.
Yes.
He is the peeping Tom neighbor who Gary Busey is like shaking his fist at.
Oh, because he sees Gary Busey. He knows he's there.
No, Gary Busey sees Bruce Glover being a peeping Tom. So he's like, about him. So I had fun with it despite its running time. I think I gave it 3 stars just because of that aspect of it. But honestly, I think this is one of Gary Busey's best performances. Like,
wow.
He's going for it. Like, and he's not.
I mean, he rarely doesn't go for it.
Right. But he's not so distracted. Like, because you know how, like, when we watch Nick Cage movies now, it's like, all right, when's he going to cage? It's kind of the same thing with Gary Busey, where, like, he does Busey in this movie, but he's also still really trying. And so it's like, off the rails Gary Busey, kind of ringing the bell Gary Busey.
I do want to see this one.
Yeah, it's fun. This was on, where was it? This was on Prime, actually.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so for my pick, I went with new horror 2020 release, The Empty Man.
I've heard about this one.
Yeah, I think we brought it up. We brought it up when we were talking about Night of the Scarecrow. I think I'm going to bring up Night of the Scarecrow pretty much every other movie.
Okay.
Because Stephen Root was, he's one of the brothers. In
Right.
And
Yeah.
I saw that he was credited for The Empty Man. And he's good in it. He plays kind of like this L. Ron Hubbard character in it, which is very interesting. But it's based on a graphic novel, which I wasn't aware of. Well, first off, it's directed by David Pryor.
Not David A. Pryor, right?
I don't know.
The guy who does all those cheesy 80s action movies. Like, oh my God, why can't I think of it right now? Deadly Prey. God, fuck, that was bugging me. Yeah. So David A. Pryor has done, he did Sledgehammer too, which I think both of us have been, maybe the Video Vortex.
Great Peter Gabriel song.
But I love Deadly Prey.
Yeah, this isn't David A. Pryor.
No, it's David Pryor, not David A. Pryor.
And so The Empty Man, I didn't realize was based on a graphic novel.
Okay.
Written by Cullen Bunn and artist Vanessa R. Del Rey. And I actually read one of Bunn's comic books called The Sixth Gun when I read a lot of comics way back when, which he did with artist Brian Hurt, which is really good stuff. But the Empty Man is basically an urban legend, like Candyman type thing. Like this one's way more specific. It's you go to an empty bridge after dark, find an empty bottle, and blow into it while thinking of the Empty Man.
Okay.
And apparently it summons him over the course of the next 3 days. The first night you hear him, the second night you see him, and then the third night you feel him. So you die.
Oh,
basically.
I was like in a dirty way?
Yeah, I mean, that's what they say in there. The third night you feel him. I'm like, what? Okay, this is going to be fucking good. But, this one, speaking of length, this one was over 2 hours long.
Okay.
I knew it was going to be, me start early in the night and sit down and just kind of get into it because it's a long run time.
Yeah.
And tonally and the atmosphere, it's super great. Like it's dreadful stuff. The score, this is Christopher Young.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually pretty muted from like his other stuff. Like I didn't think it like blew me away, but it's kind of subdued because it kind of fits because the Empty Man is very drawn out. And like the tense scenes are reminded me of like a Hans Zimmer score, which was kind of annoying. Just the note over and over again, dun, dun, kind of Inception-y. And I was this doesn't really sound like Christopher Young. It's more Christopher Nolan. But the first 20 minutes of the Empty Man, it's like this kind of story that sets up the Empty Man myth. As a short, that would be like a 5-star short. Like it was fucking amazing to watch. Yeah. But after that, it kind of just keeps going. It's about like this guy who, there's dead children. There's a lot of dead children and they're teenagers, I think.
And that doesn't count.
Okay. But there's a lot of, because they meet the Empty Man or they blow in a bottle and then the Empty Man feels them. But they end up, a lot of people end up, killing themselves, but it could actually be murder. That's kind of like the whole mystery of it. But to me, it felt like a comic book, like an ongoing comic book. Like the publishers are like, okay, we're selling a lot of comics, so keep pumping out these single issues just to draw the story out. And that's almost what the movie felt like. It got a little too long and a little overbearing for me. And like I said, the Christopher Young score didn't really blow me away. It wasn't memorable at all. Yeah, I think that was the most recent horror on there, the 2020. But
that's what you get for trying to keep it new, Lance.
Yeah, there's a newer one on my list too, but that one's a lot better. We'll get to that. Is it me again?
Yeah, Bleeding Skull.
Bleeding Skull. So I'm kind of cheating with my pick, but I'm picking Devil Story, 1986.
The best movie ever.
The best movie ever. We've already talked about it on our Fantastic Fest, which is the Fantastic Fest episode, which is when I first watched it, which was during October. Yeah, I mean, listen to that. I mean, but this is an amazing movie. So many moments where you're like, what is happening? From start to finish, I was completely enthralled.
You picking that up for Black Friday?
Definitely. Yeah. Vinegar Syndrome have a release of that. 100% worth picking up. I would recommend this be like a gift for all your best friends. This and Joe Augustin's Ghost Rider. Those two, like you can't go wrong giving these as gifts. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Devil's Story. I mean, I think we've even talked about like that. This would be such a fun episode to do.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What did you pick?
So I did one from 90s book, 80s book, and their website. The 90s one was a movie that we've already talked about on our Bleeding Skull episode, which was one of your picks, Kingdom of the Vampire.
Yeah, odd little one.
Yeah, it's okay. And then my 80s one was Night of the Demon, 1980. Not to be confused with the Tournaire, Night of the Demon. And also not to be confused with Night of the Demons.
Joe Augustin.
Yes. That one is, I don't want to spoil that for anyone, but it's about Bigfoot hunting, but it's not what you would expect with Bigfoot hunting. Okay. But the one I wanted to talk about is the one that they actually reviewed on their site earlier this year called The Boy from Hell, or just Boy from Hell. And that's from 2004. It's on YouTube. It's under 60 minutes.
Nice.
It's Japanese. It starts off with Dayo and his mother in a car with their driver. And she's just loving life. And she's just super happy. And she's like, I love my son. This is so great. And then all of a sudden, Dayo's hat goes flying out the window. He sticks his head out the window and a truck comes by and takes off his head.
There it is.
Lance was waiting for it. And then it follows right after that where like the car stops and the mother looks into the rearview mirror and she sees her son, and there's no explanation for how this happened, but the son's decapitated body is wandering around looking for its head in the street, and the head's like right there in the street.
Wow, sounds very house like.
Yeah, it's super fun. And so she meets this old witch lady who is like, here's this claw, use this to sacrifice a child to bring your son back to life. So the mom gets a child, hangs it upside down, cuts the girl's throat, the blood spills on the grave. Dio comes back to life, but he comes back as it's not a child actor anymore. It's a little person.
What?
Cannibal with like these giant eyes and fangs. He's kind of like a vampire now. And then he starts just going around and killing people and children and eating them. And
this sounds amazing.
it is amazing. Everyone should watch The Boy from Hell 2004. It's on YouTube. It's got subtitles and everything. It's a quick watch. I love Boy from Hell.
Yeah, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, it was great. And then we have Hail Satan. Hail Satan.
Dr. Satan.
So I'll get into my actual pick. I rewatched the Exorcist prequels just because I was the child murder in those.
Okay.
Oh God, they're so bad. My actual pick though was Evil Altar from 1988. I had to download this one. Unfortunately, it's not streaming anywhere and doesn't have a release. But we recently lost William Smith, great exploitation B-movie actor. In lots of films. So I wanted to watch something. I've been meaning to watch something with him in it, and this was on my watch list. So Evil Altar, 1988, stars William Smith as Reed Weller. He is a devil worshiper trying to gain more power, and he has this henchman contractor called the Collector that he uses to kidnap kids, teens, no child death in this one, I know. So he can sacrifice them. He needs to get to 103 sacrifices to get the ultimate power.
Wow.
Which is a very odd number, but
it's like an arcade game.
It's a lot, yeah. Robert Zadar is in this as the town sheriff. He's in cahoots with William Smith's character. So this has a house in it that looks exactly like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre house, original 1974. So much so that I had to look it up to see. I was like, where was this shot? Is this the house? Is this the right, like, or is it from this side or that angle? And because I've been to it, but it's obviously been refurbished. It's a restaurant now.
Right.
But I'm still like in my head, I need John to watch it so I can be like,
So you couldn't find any production stuff?
No. But I don't know that it was, but there are certain shots where I'm just in my head, I'm absolutely convinced that it's the Texas Chainsaw House. So I don't know. John has to watch it. His weird brain can tell me in a second whether I'm right or not. So it's not very good, but it's worth it because Smith hamming it up, Robert Zadar hamming it up as he always does in it. And the two of them like playing off each other. It's just like, in it. Plus there's this scene where a girl gets beat up by a baseball. Like the baseball's like flying around the room and it's like thunk into her head and then just goes around.
Like satanic powers, like.
Yeah. It's a satanic, the ball is possessed has the power of Satan or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
What about you for Hail Satan?
So I went with a Roberta Findlay movie, Primeval, also from 1988.
Mm-hmm.
Since the mid-1300s, a time when the Black Plague decimated more than half of Europe, there has been great turmoil within the church. Lucifer seized this opportunity and chose a leader to recruit a great following and administer his prime evil throughout the world. And now he wants you.
So this one has a lot of Satanism in it, but it's a Christmas movie.
Yes. She likes her Christmas movies.
Yeah, she does. It's about like a creepy ass grandpa giving up his granddaughter to sacrifice to Satan so he can move up in this underground, centuries old group of devil worshipping clergymen. Just a lot of old dudes. And then a nun actually infiltrates this Satan worshipping group to kind of reveal and help destroy them. It all takes place in Manhattan. So there's some really cool kind of 90s or 80s New York City locations, when it's still kind of gritty and gross.
Mm-hmm.
Fun to watch right there. But not very exciting because the dialogue and the character. Well, the dialogue and characters they're pretty boring and not like amazing actors or a script or anything. But they're so strange that I was just completely into it. Like I was wanting to know where this was going because these characters are so odd. But kind of be prepared for a letdown.
Yeah.
Satan does make an appearance though.
Yeah.
And he looks a lot like a piñata. It's just a giant piñata, which I loved. After I watched it, I have the vinegar syndrome with this, the double feature with Lurkers.
Lurkers, yeah.
And I listened to some of Finlay's commentary, and I just loved it. Like
I love her commentary.
Yeah, she explains how she's like, I'm not a fan of horror. I never have been, never will be. And how the actresses, none of them could act. And she's just kind of tearing everybody
She doesn't
apart.
care. I love that about her.
It's so good. So yeah, I want to watch Lurkers and Primeval with her full commentary. So that's plan. That's my plan this year.
Good plan.
Thanks. But Primeval, I do recommend it. Just for that piñata. I mean, the characters are so odd. It's worth it.
Okay.
Believe me. Okay, so Mexico's next.
Yes.
I went with something that you let me borrow.
Yeah.
The Black Pit of Dr. M.
You better love this movie because I love this movie
From
so
1959. I hate this movie. So much I love it. Director Fernando Mendez, who did The Vampire and The Vampire's Coffin. Really great score. I'm just going to point out some of the cast right now. A really great score by Gustavo Cesar Carrion. I don't know how to say it, but
God, your Spanish is terrible.
Gustavo Cesar Carrion. I don't know. But he did the Brainiac, the Satanic Pandemonium, Mysteries of Black Magic, which he wrote about on that paper, which was great. But it's about I've already established my Spanish, but Dr. Jacinto Aldama dies, and he made a promise with another scientist, Dr. Masali. And the promise is whoever dies first must communicate with the other to prove that the living can cross over to death. And I don't really want to give anything away because it just kind of snowballs from there. It has a lot of great twists and some changes in tone. And I think we've talked about it. It could be a great future episode. But this one really felt like October to me, which, I was kind of shooting for every pick to kind of put me in that Halloween October spirit. Mm-hmm. This one really worked. After I watched it, all I really wanted to do was just continue watching Mexican horror for the rest of the month.
There's so much good stuff.
It's really good. So thank you for letting me borrow it.
Yeah. It is on YouTube, but there's no subtitles for it, unfortunately. Okay. So for folks, there is a DVD. I do recommend picking up the DVD because, spoiler, this is going to be a future episode.
Yeah.
Once we can get the guest for that coordinated with the right timing. So I actually wanted to do this as an episode back in September, but I couldn't get scheduling right. So planning it for the future.
That'll be a
pick
good
up
one.
the DVD. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Mexico for me was In the Palm of Your Hand, 1951. This was on YouTube. It didn't come up the first time I searched for it on YouTube. So if you Google the title and the year and put English subtitles, then it came up for some reason. So anyway. This was much more of a thriller than a horror movie. Whoops. Which is fine because it still, has that vibe to it. Stars Arturo de Cordova, who was Dr. Pablo Morales in Skeleton and Mrs. Morales that we covered on an episode.
Yeah.
As a blackmailing palm reader, he gets a woman to admit that she killed her husband, and then it becomes this cat and mouse game between the two of them. I had really high hopes for this one. I think I had it like up in my, because I unfortunately read reviews like one of the best Mexican thrillers of all time. And I was like, fuck yeah.
Right. And
I watched it. And I think, again, there are certain movies that deserve to be as long as they are. But then there's ones who are just like, no. Like if you trim it down a little bit, you would have a really tight little thriller, but it's just under, 2 hours long. If it were honestly like 85, 90 minutes, it would be super great. Yeah. Cordova is great in this though, just like he is in Mrs. Morales. I was expecting him to be sympathetic, and he does definitely have his moments where he is in this, But overall, like, he's kind of shitty. And it does actually, the ending is great though, because it does have this really good, like, oh shit moment, like the end of Mrs. Morales when, he accidentally drinks his own poison. So
Nice.
Oh shit! Spoiler for anyone who hasn't listened to that episode. So I do recommend In the Palm of Your Hand, but I just think it's a little longer than it should have been. Is all.
Good title.
Yeah, it's a great title. Great poster, like everything. Next category is
Woo! Here we go.
fucking Scarecrow.
Can we close this episode out with Ministry Scarecrow? It's like an 11-minute song.
Yeah, fucking why not? Episode's already going to be 2 hours after I'm done ranting on this movie. All right, I watched, because there are very few good Scarecrow movies, and we've already covered one on this podcast.
Well, we haven't seen enough. That's
There's not that many.
I had a pretty long list.
There's not that many that are good, that are from a decent decade. I watched Scarecrow from 2002. This garbage was on YouTube. Lance, let me ask you a question. What do you think is a reasonable amount of time to have cast credits in the beginning of a film?
Well, it all depends on what's being shown. Is there segments in between?
No,
It's just full-on
like
credits.
Yeah, full-on credits. There's some like background
2
corn.
minutes.
There's background corn. You think 2 minutes for just the cast?
Just for the cast.
Not full credits, just the cast.
Well, I mean, how many scarecrows are in this? I'm going to say 20 seconds.
Okay, thanks. Because this movie's cast credits start at 48 seconds and end at 2 minutes and 15 seconds.
Is it a slow crawl or is
No.
it that many people?
It's like slow, and it's that many. It's like that much time in between each name, and nothing is on screen behind it.
Wow.
Fuck this movie just for that.
Just extending that runtime to make it a feature.
It's just, okay. I have nothing nice to say about this movie. Let me just tell you, some of the bands with songs in this movie include Pop Sicko, Terminal Speed, Blazing Haley, and The Ascension.
No Barnyard Slut?
No Barnyard Slut.
Damn.
I don't even remember what this movie is about. I gave it a half.
It's about Scarecrow.
It's about a scarecrow, and I gave it a half star because I hated it. Let's move on to Lance because he'll be nice to a movie.
Okay, I went with, mine's a little newer, 2011, Husk, directed by Brett Simmons.
Cool.
I don't know. He had the other movie I could find is You Might Be the Killer from 2018.
Okay, I've heard of that, but
I had two, but so this one is, I was looking for a Scarecrow movie. This one's more of like a haunted, possessed cornfield than a straight up like Scarecrow horror. It's kind of the spirit that's hopping scarecrows.
okay.
It kills people and turns them into scarecrows. So it kind of
Reverse scarecrows.
reverse scarecrowology. I don't know. But it's about a group of friends. I'm gonna do this plot synopsis because it's worth watching.
Okay.
A group of friends are heading out to camp for a weekend trip, and they get into a wreck when a bunch of crows just kind of simultaneously crash into their windshield. Like, boom, like it's terrifying stuff,
Mm-hmm.
right? So they're in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by cornfields. I think you know where this is going. And when they come to, because it's a wreck, one of the friends is missing. Two friends break off. They see this farmhouse. They go to the farmhouse. They hear something upstairs. Open the door. It's a sewing room. Their friend's there at the sewing machine with his back.
Let me guess.
towards
His
him.
lips are sewn shut.
His lips aren't sewn shut, but he's sewing.
Skin.
It's not skin. I thought it was at first, but he's sewing basically a scarecrow mask. And his
Okay.
hands do have like these nails in them. It's very, very strange.
Okay.
Very like, what is happening? This is interesting.
I'm going to give it to you, Lance. You can. I mean, I'm not sold, but you can sell any movie and make it
Well-
like you sound like you're interested in it. Maybe you are. Maybe you are actually interested. in it,
It's
but you
an okay movie.
You're selling it.
It's me and scarecrows. I'm just trying to push. I picked this category.
I know you did. You're trying to sell your category, and you're not going to sell me on it.
I mean, so the farmhouse and like the surrounding cornfield is, like I said, it's kind of possessed. It's all tied to this family that lived in this farmhouse, like this family drama and murder. There's some brutal kills. There's some pretty gnarly effects.
Okay.
Like I said, the nails through the fingers, a lot of that. It does kind of turn into, is it like a progressive insurance commercial that they showed during, I think, October, where it's those people who are like, let's go hide behind the chainsaws, or let's go to the cemetery. You know?
Right. Yeah.
That's what it became. Like it was,
Ew.
it turned into that. Like you're like, okay, here we go. Here's where it's happening. I mean, I know Scarecrow horror films, they get a bad rap.
Rightfully so.
Wasn't it Sam Deegan, though, who talked about doing like a Scarecrow horror marathon on our...
Yeah. And she said like that was the one that we covered. Night of the Scarecrow was like the highlight one, and everything else was garbage.
I don't know.
Aside from like the good classic ones that you know, like Dark Knight of the Scarecrow.
Right, which, yeah, that one I love.
But like, yeah, no.
Add husk to your marathon Scarecrow.
Don't tell anyone to do that. Don't
Sounds
bring
like a
people
fucking
down.
blast.
Don't bring people down with you, Lance. Come on.
Dude, if I'm going down, who's coming with me? Okay, so Husk, 2011. I think it was on Tubi. I don't remember.
All right.
80s horror.
Yes.
I mean, so many movies to choose from. I went with Fade to Black.
Yeah, I actually, that's not my pick, but I watched that this month too.
So I had never seen it. I've been wanting to see it. One thing I will point out right away is because you had brought it up too, just a moment ago. For me, I felt like it felt too long.
Mm-hmm.
If just shave off 15 to 20 minutes, it would be a complete banger. But
Yeah.
Written and directed by Vernon Zimmerman. This also has a Vinegar Syndrome release out there. I'm not going to lie. I mean, one of the main reasons I selected it, obviously I've been wanting to see it for a while, but it has Jack Death himself in it.
It does.
Tim Thomerson, baby. Looking young as hell, rad as hell with the mustache, blowing on harmonica like a fucking champ. Like he was blowing my mind. And he's also he's not used. His scenes are so few and far between. He plays like a reporter, police guy, kind of trying to solve a case.
He's like a counselor with the police or something like that. It's weird.
It's a weird character, and he just kind of pops up. There's some sex scenes with him. That's cool.
Yeah.
But it's about like a young man who's completely consumed by movies, just infatuated by all of them. And he basically starts acting out scenes and characters from his favorite films, kind of murdering people who have treated him poorly.
Yeah.
This kid who just loves movies, he's really fun to watch. The actor's name's Dennis Christopher. His name's Eric in it, and he plays awkwardly sad, like incredibly well.
Mm-hmm.
Like you feel for him, but he's completely out of his mind. There's this one scene that just really stood out for me is when he's watching a movie, he's munching on his popcorn. He's actually all dressed up too. And he's shushing people that are talking, just shushing them like, shh, just so into the movie. Big mood, respect it. But I felt like it was a little too long.
Yeah. I liked his like whole movie nerd shtick kind of thing. Like I like characters like that like they're so into like their one thing. Like he actually kind of oh God, he actually kind of reminds me of a more mild-mannered John in a way, like with like that movie nerd part of him. But like, and even that scene where he's in the diner and he first meets the two girls and he's like, he's imitating the Gill Man. I was like, that's like John's mating call. Like he made that noise on our first date.
Yeah, he thinks one of the girls is Marilyn Monroe pretty much because she looks a lot like him. There's also a young Mickey Rourke in it, which is funny.
Yeah, that's true. I forgot about him.
And he's kind of into movies too, so he hates it when this young kid is like outdoing him on movie trivia. So those were fun scenes to watch too.
Yeah.
Okay, what'd you pick for 80s horror?
Actually, mine were rewatches. This is the only category where I did that, but the one I want to talk about is because I want everyone to pick up the Vinegar because Black Friday is coming up. I did get to see the 4K restoration of Possession at AFS, which looks amazing. Awesome. And I love that movie. And every time I rewatch it, it's something new to me. Like it hits me differently every time I watch it. So I can't remember who's releasing that, but whoever is, pick it up. Possession is just one of my favorite movies of all time. But the movie I want to talk about is Bloody Sect, 1982. Vinegar Syndrome has a Blu-ray of this. Satanists are trying very hard to get the Dark Lord to be reborn with the help of a fertility doctor. So you have like some women who are like realize what's happened and they get an abortion, or some women are dying, but they finally get one woman who is able to stay pregnant, keep the baby to term with the help of one of the one of the Satanists basically hiring herself to come stay with the couple during the pregnancy as kind of like a nurse, housemaid kind of thing. There's also a mentally unstable woman at the beginning of it who lives in the house, but for very unclear reasons. And then she gets taken away and then brought back to the house. This is Spanish horror, by the way. Sorry, I should have said that. This is why it doesn't really make sense. It's a very Rosemary's Baby sort of ripoff. But anyway, the mentally unstable woman, she comes back at the end for the finale. I think I might have posted about this one. This, at the very end, it has the best baby Satan ever put to film. And I've added this to our list to cover in an episode coming up.
Okay, cool.
Probably early next year.
A baby Satan, you said?
Yes, baby Satan. Best one ever put to screen. And I am not exaggerating.
Okay.
You will stand up and cheer when you see this baby.
It's a real baby, like in makeup?
I'm not spoiling this for anybody. Because I would never want to deprive anyone of having the reaction I had the first time I saw this movie. So Bloody Sect, 1982, pick up the Vinegar Syndrome Blu-ray. I don't think it's streaming right now. Maybe it will be eventually, but you should. Black Friday is coming up. No one has any excuse not to own this movie. All right, and then female behind the camera. I watched Office Killer, 1997, directed by Cindy Sherman. I rented this from the library.
Nice.
That's still a place, folks. You can rent movies or actually you don't rent, you check them out from the library. You don't pay. Libraries are free. It's a wonderful thing. So it stars Carol Kane, Molly Ringwald, and Jean Triplehorn. So Carol Kane's the main character in it. She's a copywriter, and she works for a magazine that's downsizing. And it's funny because this is 1997, but a lot of kind of what they're going through is relevant today because they're downsizing, they send her and a bunch of other people to go work from home. And they're even like, here, we'll send you with a computer and get you all set up and whatever kind of thing you need. But going to work is the only thing that she has in her life because her mom lives at home with her and is like super just mean to her and like super needy. Mm-hmm. So she can't cope with working from home. She's like, it's too much. So she accidentally kills one of her coworkers when she's in the office. And instead of reporting it, she brings the body back home with her to her basement so she'll have a coworker with her there. And then it just kind of escalates from there.
Is it like a comedy horror?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's not, it's a black comedy more so.
Right.
It's not like goofy horror comedy that I hate. I liked it. Molly Ringwald, I mentioned she's in it. It's weird because like I said, it feels dated when you watch it, but it also feels timely just because of the subject matter.
Right.
Like I think that's the only thing that made it feel relevant right now. Like everything else, like you look at the computers, you're like, oh my God, look at that computer. You know?
It's like a nice chest.
I think it's also kind of what makes it funny though. I think I gave it 3 stars. I liked it. I guess I'd recommend it.
Cool.
Yeah. What about you? Female behind the camera.
Female behind the camera. I was going to put on Lurkers with Roberta Findlay, but this one I had watched as a backup kind of for sequels, and I was kind of running out of time, so I threw this one on. Slumber Party Massacre 3.
Ooh, ouch.
I mean, I do respect all the Slumber Party Massacres because they all are female directed. Mm-hmm. This one's directed by Sally Madison. Also has a female writer and producer, Catherine Siren. Also Roger Corman produced it.
Of course.
But it's your basic slasher, you know. I like the girls in this and in most of the Slumber Party Massacres. They're kind of tough. You know, some of them have tough attitudes. They're not, you know, your classic girls like running and, you know, just scared. And so it's always fun to watch them like fight back and stuff and handle the killer.
Yeah.
This one had a surprise kind of twist concerning the killer. And it actually left me kind of it left me guessing who the killer was at this point for like the first hour. It's fun. I just had fun with it. Part
1 and 2 are so good, though. It's such a steep drop off.
It is. Yeah, for sure. From the first 2. I mean, the second's my favorite. I love.
I mean, that driller. Yeah.
That
one's the most fun.
Yeah.
All right.
I think that was on Tubi. I don't remember. Slumber Party Massacre 3, 1990. Hong Kong.
Yeah.
So this is an 88 films Blu-ray I recently picked up, The Oily Maniac,
Oh, yay. Fun.
which, I'd seen it many, many years ago, but nothing that I really remembered. I was just a stupid kid. So
We got a Jaws theme recurring here because the oil slick sounds like the Jaws music when it's on the ground.
yeah, that's true. So this was, it was really, first off, all the Shaw Brothers stuff, still kind of high on Shawgust. And this didn't disappoint. The lead character had polio as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
So he uses crutches to get around, and he wants to marry his cousin, which is all very weird in and of itself. And his uncle is convicted and scheduled to be executed for killing a man. So he goes to visit his uncle, who has this tattoo on his back, which is like this spell that would turn him into the oily maniac. So he traces that, and he does the spell, and he becomes the oily maniac. Really, the whole thing, though, is like about a sleazy lawyer. It's just kind of all over the place for me. Like, I wanted a lot of oily maniac, but then when he pops up, it's just him yelling a lot, and like he's like Belial from Basket Case, like so much yelling and
It
kind
is
of like
a lot. Yeah.
puking oil in people's faces, which is fun to watch. It does have a head stomp in it that's completely brutal.
Yes.
My review for that was doused in diesel and ready to mingle. That's good.
That doesn't rhyme.
Okay, doused in diesel and ready to mingle.
It doesn't rhyme, though.
It works. Come on.
All right, fine. I'll let you have it.
But yeah, I recommend The Oily Maniac to everyone.
88 films, right?
88 films, yeah.
Hong Kong for me, I watched The Demon's Baby, 1988.
Mm-hmm.
Nope, 1998.
You have a lot of 90s on your list.
I know.
I like it.
I'm not actually. The next one's a '90s one too, but they're. Well, Office Killer wasn't foreign, but anyway, foreign horror doesn't count. Foreign is its own animal, especially when Hong Kong. This was on YouTube. There's 5 demon spirits that are released from their jars. They collectively possess a man who gets all 4 of his wives pregnant in one night with demon babies. Anthony Wong is the exorcist who has to stop all of them from being born with like the help of these 2 guys who are like, there's all these women have gone crazy and they're killing people. So I mentioned I watched this on YouTube. It's a really shitty copy on YouTube. So I even went and downloaded a torrent after the fact, but that wasn't that much better. I would love to see this restored because the end of this, like from what I could see, was all of the pregnant woman had like their bellies were opened and like the demon babies and like these tentacles were coming out and like pulling people in and like killing them. And there's like, they have like these sharp teeth and there's all like goopiness happening. And I know, like, I wish I could see more of it. And
It's practical effects? Like it's like, or is it CGI?
Oh no, it's practical effects.
Okay.
Yeah. And, yeah, so I mean, I definitely recommend The Demon's Baby, but I don't know if I should tell people that wait until it gets a restoration. But you never know with movies like these. I mean,
yeah, it may never happen. So
yeah,
you should watch.
I mean, The Untold Story got one. I know that there's some other stuff coming out soon that's kind of along that line. So maybe Hong Kong's going to start getting a lot more love, but especially stuff like this, and maybe hopefully more Anthony Wong, please. I mean, I guess maybe still watch it. And if you have it, like if it's super dark in your room and you can change the contrast on your TV or something,
right,
maybe you can see it better. But this probably would have been one of my favorites of the month if I could fully see it, you know?
Yeah.
So moving on to Slasher, I watched, this is at Austin's recommendation, Austin Green's, The Monster or Mahakal from 1994, the Indian Bollywood Nightmare on Elm Street. I know there's DVDs releases of it out there. It's also on YouTube. It's fun, but oh my God, Bollywood movies do not give a fuck about pacing. Like it's just even fast forwarding through the songs, which I know is cheating. Like it's not fully watching the movie, but even fast forwarding through the songs, I felt the length of it. Like it's 2 hours and 15 minutes long, and and there's so much picnicking in this movie. It's like, you know what I want? I want the No singing and no picnicking cut. Like, release that cut. Hashtag Mahakal, no singing, no picnicking cut. Something like that. That's a very long hashtag, but I want it.
It's the whole tweet. But the singing is so... I know what you mean by it, though.
It's a
There
lot.
was one I watched during Fantastic Fest. It was kind of like a Rocky Horror Dracula ripoff. I think it might have been called Fangs.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I could feel the length in that. And that one is not even near 2 hours.
Yeah. So I mean, I would recommend it, but I mean, maybe wait for the no singing, no picnicking cut. Somebody just make that cut, please.
Cut.
Somebody made the fucking Jaws exploitation cut. Like, somebody can make the Mahakal no singing, no picnicking cut for me, please. Please and thank you.
Send that to me when you're done, please.
What about you for slasher?
I picked Bloody Moon, 1981. Jess Franco.
Yes.
This one's about a man named Miguel with this disfigured face. So it starts off with him sneaking into this costume party. He steals a mask and he lures a woman off and brutally kills her with a pair of scissors. There's no mystery involved in this movie, by the way. And Miguel's left to care for his sister, Manuela, and they're both heirs to a countess who funds a language boarding school. And he's basically staying at this boarding school and picking off all the ladies staying there. Classic slasher. He has a really gross motive involving his sister, though. There's a mystery. Very soap opera. They're like three dudes in this whole movie, and everybody else are just, horny women that are after him. Just these three guys. So I guess that's fun to watch. It's one of those. It's bizarre. It has really terrible dialogue, and the dubbing. It's one of those where it sounds like they're talking 100 miles per hour and just cramming in so many sentences. Hey, where were you? Sorry we're late. Angela was cold. Haha, do you have any food? I'm hungry. I need to go. Tomorrow, hey, it's getting dark. Where should I go? It's just like, you're like, wait, what are they saying? It's nonstop. But you know me, I enjoyed the hell out of it. And the characters just do these strangest things. Like, they're living in a dream and you're living in a dream watching it, even when they're being murdered. It does have one of the best decapitation scenes I've ever seen.
I don't know. You haven't seen Alien 2 on Earth.
That's true. So we need to actually pull those up together and rank them. And then there's a child death. There's a kid that gets hit by a car.
Yes.
I showed that with you. The score, I want to point out the score because it's wild. It's by Gerard Hines. And it sounded like Dark Side of the Moon. Like it was Pink Floyd, just this. Or I also noted it sounded like the last song from Rocky Horror. It's the one where the ship's taken off.
Right. Okay.
But
I just rewatched that too, and I'm like, eh.
Yeah, there's different. I think there's different. Like there's one cut where it doesn't have that scene at the end.
Okay.
But anyways, the score was wild. It was really, really fun to listen to. There was a real snake being killed in there. Just pointing that out for people who may not like to watch real animals.
We don't like it.
But yeah, it's just a classic slasher where the final girl kind of finds all the dead bodies in a single place at the end. She opens up all the doors and it's all her friends. And they're like, oh my God. Recommend it. Enjoyed it overall. It's currently on Tubi. And we have the Unsung Horrors under 1,000 views category. So I'm going to cheat on this one too. We're just going to skip over. Night Angel, 1990. Joe Augustin. So listen to the episode if you haven't already. It's a lot of fun. Really happy with how it turned out. He was a great guest. We chatted not only about Night Angel, but Night of the Demons. And of course, Joe's book, Ghost Rider. Available at ghostpolaroids.com or Amazon. Everybody should support his work. I'm being serious here. It's a fun read. Night Angel on YouTube or the Kino DVD. What about you, Erica?
All right. Under 1,000 views. I did Bad Blood 1988. So please note the year because there are a lot of movies called Bad Blood. So 1988, this is on YouTube, directed by Chuck Vincent, who did a lot of adult films. And so he brought some adult film actors into this. So including Randy Spears and Georgina Spelvin, mostly known for Devil and Miss Jones. So Randy Spears, he's walking down the street and he looks into this art studio and he sees a portrait that looks like it's him. And he's like, who the hell painted my portrait? So he goes in And he finds out who the artist is. He comes back for like the art show later and he meets the artist, who is Georgina Spelvin. And she looks at him and she's like, oh my God, you're my husband. Now they're way different in age. Like she could be his mother. And she actually says, you're my son. You're my long lost son. And he's like, what are you talking about? And he goes home to his parent and he goes to meet his parents. And his parents are like, actually, yeah, we stole you. Yeah. And the scene where his mom is explaining like how she ended up with him is like this overly dramatic moment on the beach. Like they're sitting there and it's like, it's too much almost. So he's like, okay, so this woman is my mother. My father, like apparently the dad is dead though. So she thinks that her son is actually her husband reincarnated. And so there's a weird incest thing kind of going on where she's trying to get with him, but he's like, no, you're my mom. And so he comes to her house. I know. He comes to her house with his wife, who's played by Linda Blair. And Georgina Spelvin is trying to get rid of Linda Blair. So she's like slowly poisoning her so she can get rid of her and have her son.
This is wild.
It is. Because she wants to basically keep him there. So she's trying to find some way to do that. So I'm just going to sum it up like this. Which was my Letterboxd review, was Misery, like the movie, loves company, CUM, company.
Oh, nice.
Well
done. That doesn't rhyme.
It's not supposed to rhyme. It's a pun. I would recommend it. Bad Blood, 1988.
I was getting kind of Blood Delirium vibes for a second when you started talking about like the art, like, the paintings and then him thinking he's somebody else. Or
it's out there. I'm not going to sell anyone on the acting in this movie because, it's, Linda Blair and sex film actors. So just temper your expectations for that. But it's a fun one. So yeah. And then Ken Foray was the next category. I rewatched the Argento cut of Dawn of the Dead,
nice.
Which is on, who put that out? Second Sight has that on there. It's also on the Black Box release that came out years ago. I don't remember which. Anyway, it's been years. I've only seen the Argento cut once before, and I was
I've never seen it.
Really?
Yeah.
It's good. It's less haha, more goblin. Cool. That's pretty much the difference. So then my actual watch, I guess this is also technically a rewatch because it was Phantom of the Mall, 1989. Okay. Eric's Revenge. Yeah. This was on YouTube, but I believe this is getting a release and I can't remember who's putting it out. This is kind of a rewatch though, because I was watching it and I remember Pauly Shore working at the yogurt shop in the mall, but really not much else for some reason. This might have been like peak Encino Man time, so maybe that's why I remembered it. But yeah, it's basically a fun take on the Phantom of the Opera, and what better place than a mall to do that, especially in an 80s horror movie. So,
or Arrow's releasing it.
Arrow, okay. So Phantom of the Mall, Eric's Revenge.
That's a fun one.
Yeah,
I like that one.
I'm glad I revisited it because I was like, I didn't remember any of it. And I was like, this is fun. I like it. What about you, Ken Foray?
Ken Foray. I did The Dentist, 1996, directed by Brian Yuzna, written by Stuart Gordon and Yuzna. It's about a dentist who catches his wife cheating with the pool boy on their anniversary, no less. And his world is just, along with that, his world's falling apart financially, and he's kind of just losing it overall. And he starts killing and torturing his patients. As I was watching it, I kept thinking of Tim Ritter's Truth or Dare. I was like, okay, these can kind of work together. But Corbin Burnson plays the dentist, and he's just phenomenal in this.
I haven't seen it since it came out, but I remember him being like super hammy in this.
Oh, big time. Like I was kind of losing my mind just applauding everything he was doing because he was going hard. Because I know him best as Roger Dorn from the Major League movies,
right?
The baseball movies.
Yeah.
I think he plays a third baseman, but in it, he's like a jealous asshole husband, who's has like anger issues. So seeing him kind of, take that 100 steps further in The Dentist is just fun to watch. There's a young Mark Ruffalo in this who plays like a creepy Talon agent, and then Ken Foray plays the detective, and he has a great line where he's talking to Corbin Burnson, and he's like, "You're a dentist, right? Like a cop, a necessary evil." Like, I totally get that. Yeah, a lot of uncomfortable scenes because there's a lot of people in the dentist chair, a lot of drilling going on. This isn't a spoiler, but there is a scene where he's talking to somebody and he's having one of his kind of mental breakdowns as his, he doesn't purposefully attack people. He kind of sees his wife while he's working on somebody's teeth or something. So he's triggered with some bad memory, and he's working on somebody's teeth, and he says, like, "Get your tongue out of the way. Get your tongue out of the way, God damn it." He just starts yelling, freaking out. And there's this scene where he just drills right into the tongue, and it just shows it very close up. Very good effects. Alan Howarth does the music, which is great. And I think a lot of people know Howarth from all the Halloween scores that he took over from. I mean, he's worked with Carpenter on The Thing and They Live and Big Trouble, but he took over like Halloween parts 4 through 6, doing the Halloween scores by himself. So fun score, fun little synth score. I'm going to plan on watching the sequel at some point because Bernson's back as the dentist.
All right.
He's that fun to watch where I think it's worth it.
Okay.
So both are on Tubi, by the way. All right, next category is vampires.
Yeah.
I went with Dracula Has Risen from the Grave.
Oh, okay.
1968, Hammer horror, directed by the great Freddie Francis, who we've talked about. Like Freddie Francis, I mean, the entire cast and crew involved here are just Hammer regulars. You have James Bernard doing the original score, who did almost all of the Dracula films, as well as the Cushing Frankenstein films. This one's fine. It's missing. There's no Van Helsing character, so there's no Peter Cushing in this one. Mm-hmm. The hero instead's played by Rupert Davies and Barry Andrews. And Rupert Davies plays like he's very religious. They kind of lean hard into the religion is the most powerful weapon in this Dracula movie. Yeah, they really rely on that. So I wasn't really into that because the Barry Andrews, his character, he spouts off like, "I'm an atheist. I don't believe any of that." So he's like, "You get out of my house," that sort of thing. And of course, in order for him to beat Dracula, he has to believe. So I don't know. Probably the least favorite I've seen. It's still really great because Christopher Lee as Dracula is always fun with his blood-filled eyes. Mm-hmm. The whole focus on the religion aspect kind of, and with no Peter Cushing, I wasn't 100% on board.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dracula Has Risen from the Grave, 1968. These are all worth watching.
Would you like to guess what decade my vampire movie is from?
I'm going to say the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I watched Nadja, 1994, Nadja, directed by Michael Almereyda. He also did the Hamlet remake with Ethan Hawke, where it's like a modern telling of Hamlet. He does like his soliloquy in the video store.
I haven't seen it.
Okay. I haven't seen it since it came out. That's generally what people know it from.
Okay. You
know what I'm talking about, though? Ethan Hawke and Hamlet?
Not really.
Okay, never mind.
It sounds like a movie Ethan Hawke would do.
So only the people who have seen or are familiar with the Ethan Hawke Hamlet will understand why I'm probably not super hot on this. It's a modern retelling of Dracula shot in black and white, taking place in New York City. The problem with it, and probably the reason I didn't like it, is that it feels very 90s. Like if you watch this and I didn't tell you what year it was made, you'd be like, this is a 90s movie. And that to me is not a good thing. Yeah. Because I hate that decade.
Well, I mean, you can usually spot most 90s movies.
Right. And that's the reason why, right. Like, you can spot them. Like, my favorite is when you can't tell, like, a 70s or 80s movie. It's like, ooh, This feels like an 80s movie that feels like a leftovers from the 70s, or like a progressive 70s movie that feels like it belongs in the 80s, or something that is so clearly 70s and gritty and mean. Like, just 90s is just, Anyway, it was produced by David Lynch.
I feel
that's why I figured you would know something about it. So he has a small role in it. He's a guard at the morgue and has a little line, and that's the best part of the movie.
Welcome to the morgue.
I mean, it's okay. It just felt dated for me. It has some experimental elements like pixel cam. The lead actress, Alina Lowenson, is really good. Oh god, you know what else though? Peter Fonda's in this. He's playing Van Helsing
Oh,
in it.
wow.
I'm not trying to sell it. Stop sounding like you're interested.
Is David Lynch's daughter involved in it in any way? Or
Probably. I don't remember.
I mean, it may just be Lynch because I do remember, seeing that Nadja title.
Yeah. Anyway, Peter Van Helsing. Peter Fonda playing Van Helsing just didn't help. I honestly don't care for Peter Fonda, and I am convinced that he's fooled people into thinking that he's a good actor. I don't think he is. I think he just attaches himself to people like Warren Oates or Dennis Hopper or whoever, and he is good actor by proxy or something like that. Like he's not like everything else I see him in where it's just him in the lead. I'm like, he's so fucking boring in everything that I see him in.
I could see that.
Sorry, there's my other rant besides Scarecrows, as I hate Peter Fonda. So I don't know. I it's not for me. It's I'm not going to say like I recommend it or I don't. It's a movie that's definitely not for me. It's just one of those movies like if a movie could smirk, this movie would smirk. It just feels like that. Like I appreciate the retelling of the story, but it's not for me. I gave it 3 stars cuz it is visually beautiful.
Yeah.
But I'm never going to rewatch this movie. And that's a big part of me recommending or liking a movie is would I rewatch this again?
Right.
And I just wouldn't. So moving on to Giallo. I watched a movie that you recommended to me a couple of years ago. I don't remember if it was for Horror Gives Back or Junesploitation, but it was 1972's Who Saw Her Die.
Oh, yeah.
Directed by Aldo Lado.
That was Junesploitation, yeah.
Okay, so that was last year's Junesploitation. So I was going to tell folks to go listen to that episode, but customers also watch us no more. So, maybe I'll I'll grab those recordings and like upload them at some point, just our episodes from there and be like, bonus, here's us on another podcast or something.
Do it.
I think what you had talked about when you brought it up though, was the Morricone score, which is like the children singing like loop thing. Fantastic. Yeah. But I think I remember I texted you right after I watched this and I was like, I can't watch any Gialli for a while because as soon as a certain character showed up in the movie, I was like, oh, that's the killer. And I was right. And I was like, God fucking damn it. I can't I need to not watch Gialli for a while. So I'm on a Gialli Lent until January. So no more.
Gives you a good couple months off.
Yeah, I need a few months off from it. I really enjoyed it. I mean, maybe like a good pairing with Don't Look Now for a Grief in Venice type movie. What about you for Giallo?
Okay, so I had picked up the Kino Lorber Blu-ray of this, Sleepless, 2001, directed by Dario Argento. Not one of Argento's best.
You think?
Just a quick synopsis. It's about a serial killer who is known as the Dwarf Killer, who murdered some women 17 years ago and was never caught. Then this killer returns 17 years later, terrorizing and killing again in the city in Italy. And Max von Sydow plays a detective named Morietti, who was on the case 17 years ago. Mm-hmm. So he's approached to come out of retirement because he knows the killer and his motives or whatever is so well, kind of like Manhunter. Yeah, this just isn't good. I mean, Sydow, he's always great. Sydow is always great to watch. Yeah. He has a pet parrot in it. So I was like, the Night Visitor. His parrot's name was Marcello. I was like, that's fun. Yay. Okay.
Is Azia in it?
No, she's not.
That doesn't help it. It should.
Well, yeah, no. I mean, it doesn't help it. I hate to say.
Okay.
The Goblin does a score.
Okay.
But it's catchy, but it's kind of a mess. Like even their score is kind of like, what's happening here? Super catchy, but it's kind of Goblin saying, hey, let's go hard Goblin. Let's just do it. It's too much.
All right.
There are some good practical effects or some decapitations. There's this mouth trauma that's, that scenes really probably stick with me until I die. Mm-hmm. Fingers being cut off, faces getting blown off. But overall just slow and uninteresting. The Blu-ray I have does have the Troy Howarth audio commentary,
Okay.
which I do want to listen to at some point because I'm sure it's more interesting than kind of watching the movie. I'm sure he has some great
Probably,
stuff
yeah.
to say about the film.
What about Universal Horror then?
Universal Horror. So I went with The Invisible Man's Revenge from 1944. This was the last of the Invisible Man sequels I needed to watch to have seen all the Universal Horror Invisible Man. This one's directed by John Beebe. I was excited for this too because Bertram Milhauser wrote the screenplay, and he wrote most of the Basil Rathbone Sherlock Holmes.
Oh, okay.
Little short movies that I just love. And it does kind of have a feel like that. John Hall reprises his role as the Invisible Man. He had played a different Invisible Man in The Invisible Agent, the sequel before, which it's okay. Invisible Agent, and then there's also a very young John Carradine in this. So the cast is really sharp, but the setup does play kind of like the Sherlock Holmes episode that I was kind of referring to for the screenplay writer. It's John Hall plays this man who the local constables are after due to like this blackmailing stuff that he's been doing. And Carradine takes him in and hides him in his little house. And once he's in his house, it's really funny because Carradine's working on this, this invisible drug that he's administered to his pets. So he has an invisible dog, like on a leash.
Aww.
There's even an invisible parrot. It's 2 movies in a row, parrots. There's this really cool scene where he's feeding. It's done really well. These great effects where he's feeding meat to the invisible dog, and it looks good.
That's cute.
And then he tries the drug on Hall, who's like, "Yeah, have at it. I'm on the run. Let's test it out. I'll be the first human," and it works. And then Hall becomes kind of a callback to the original Invisible Man, which I really like seeing. Becomes this greedy asshole, kind of like causing havoc, playing practical jokes. All the previous sequels, except for the Vincent Price Invisible Man Returns, they're all kind of comedies. So I missed seeing like an evil, diabolical Invisible Man. So I really like this. He starts blackmailing people. This man who owes him money. He's trying to get the man who owes him money. He's trying to force his daughter to marry him. It's just it becomes super sleazy. And I missed that and I liked it. So this was one of my favorite sequels that I've seen from the Invisible Man movies. Recommended. What about you?
Okay, so Universal Horror for me. So I have like the big set that's got like all the monsters, all the movies in it from that I got last year. And instead of talking about any of the, like I did rewatch a few of them, like The Wolfman and Creature from the Black Lagoon and Bride of Frankenstein. But I wanted to talk about one that is Universal but not Universal. It's The Invisible Man Appears from 1949. Arrow has a release of this, and it's a Japanese film. So it takes the premise of Universal's Invisible Man for a story basically about trying to steal a necklace. The plot is really messy. This guy is basically using the potion to make another guy invisible and then blackmailing him into stealing the necklace so he can have it, and then it's frustrating because the plot is so messy. Mm-hmm. It's really something that you just watch for the effects. But that being said, if you've seen Universal's Invisible Man, then you've already seen the effects. So it's one of those where it's like, I watched it because I wanted to, but I didn't see anything new, and the plot is kind of messy. So it's missing that manic Claude Rains performance too. Like that's, to me, like I'm with you. Like that's the Invisible Man type of movie that I love. Yeah. Like the mean, like turns into an asshole kind of thing. Yeah. Like the guy in this is already an asshole, and the guy he turns into an Invisible Man is like more sympathetic. Like he's starting. There's like he could start, emotionally unstable, but he never really does. So. But the effects are done by, and I know I'm going to mispronounce this, Eiji Tsuburara. I'm sorry, I know I pronounced that incorrectly, but he did a bunch of effects, including original Godzilla movies, 1954, and a few of the other ones. And so this is, 1949, so it's a few years before that. And so again, you're kind of just seeing all the same effects that you've already seen in Invisible Man, but it's like, I support you too. Wish you had a better story though. But Arrow's got a Blu-ray release of it. There's actually 2 movies on that disc. I forgot what the other one was. It's also The Invisible Man something, another Japanese movie.
Cool. So they had their own Invisible Man.
Yeah, they were basically just taking what a Universal did and making their own thing out of it. So I didn't get a chance to watch the second one yet. I'll still watch the other one in hopes that it has a better story. And then Stephen King. My pick was a movie that we talked about, again, kind of cheating and skipping. Something we talked about in our Fantastic Fest episode, which was Timekeepers of Eternity. That was a 2021 release, and it's basically Stephen King's The Langoliers changed into a black and white experimental film. If you want to hear more about it, listen to our Fantastic Fest episode where we talk about it.
Yeah, we both loved it.
Yeah. What about you for Stephen King?
So this was my other new horror movie, Dr. Sleep, 2019.
Okay.
Mike Flanagan, the king of King adaptations, doing it again. Obviously, the follow-up to Stephen King's The Shining. And I feel like I'm one of the last people to watch this. But you haven't seen it.
No, but I mean, I read the book, so I'm kind of like, eventually I'm going to have to because there's a child kill in it. But I mean. Yeah,
there is. And the child kill in this is brutal. So, and I love the cast. I'm a big Ewan McGregor fan. He plays up the grown-up Danny Torrance. Still struggling with all the fucked up stuff that he saw as a kid in The Overlook. He's great in it, but the actress Rebecca Ferguson, this is like her movie. She plays a character named Rose the Hat.
She Rose the Hat, okay.
Yeah. She's kind of the leader of this like psychic cult who extend their lifespan by killing those with the shining power and sucking their life force or their steam. But yeah, like, we already pointed out that the murders that they show are super grisly, including this intense child kill of this young boy. But I'm glad we finally watched it. I mean, I haven't read the book. The film definitely goes hard in pulling in from the Kubrick film adaptation of The Shining, which, there's stories out there that Stephen King hated that version. But I appreciated it because it does kind of mold them together. Like the scores, you could probably like overlay them on top of each other and you wouldn't tell the difference. I think it becomes a little heavy-handed in the end with how much nostalgia like is thrown at you, and I don't know if that's in the book. Like all the characters from the Shining.
I don't remember. I read the book when it first came out. I just remember like
I almost feel like this was a Mike Flanagan embellishment. I know he seems to stick true to his King adaptations, but it seemed a little much for me. But overall, I really enjoyed it. Visually, It's just gorgeous, and the performances were spot on. Physical media. I went with The Devil's Honey.
Fuck yeah.
Directed and written by Lucio Fulci. So yeah, my Letterboxd review is a weird, depraved soap opera with a lot of awkward fucking, including some angry sax sex. Well done, Lucio. It's such an odd movie. It's about this weird couple who don't really seem to love each other at all. Mm-mm. They rather love the idea of their fucked up relationship. The guy, whose name is Johnny, he's a famous musician. He can blow the sax really well, but he hits his head messing around on his motorcycle after practically sexually abusing his girlfriend. Like the sex scenes between the two are so uncomfortable because she's like crying and saying no the whole time. Jessica, his girlfriend, blames the surgeon who operates on Johnny when he can't save him. So when Johnny dies, she goes and kidnaps this doctor and just tortures him in these strange sexual ways. I don't think it's a horror film at all.
No.
It's like this erotic melodrama, through and through. But there are some fucked up scenes, where, that they're kind of horrific to look at. But we have to talk about the one scene, which is the sex. Which I love. And how it starts is, this is in the very beginning too. This is one of like the first like big scenes in the studio. Yeah. It kind of opens up like what you're getting into. But his girlfriend, Johnny's there like in the recording studio and the producers leave the room. She asks Johnny, "What are you going to do, Johnny?" And he's walking up with the saxophone very close to her. And he's like, "I'm going to dedicate this to you." And he starts blowing on the saxophone and her panties are down at this point. And you guys watch it, The Devil's Honey, Not only is there like saxophone sex. There's like nail polish sex and
That's right. Yeah,
like
yeah.
weird nail polish and like motorcycle hand jobs and a lot of open mouth tongue kissing, which always it's always too long, no matter how short it is. Like Sleepless being not one of Argento's best, The Devil's Honey's not one of Fulci's best, but I'm glad I own it, and it's one I would watch again for sure.
Yeah, it's a fun one.
What about you for physical media?
I finally busted into my Eurocrypt of Christopher Lee.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. From Severin. For this one, I watched Castle of the Living Dead. Lee plays Count Drago, and he invites a traveling comedy troupe to his castle to perform for him. So he calls himself a scientist and appears to be doing some sort of taxidermy, but it's much more sinister than that. So then he's actually starts, picking off the comedy troupe people one by one. It's great. There's a scene in it where the comedy troupe is performing for him, and he is just like giddy as all get out. Like he's got this huge smile on his face, and you don't see that very often from Christopher Lee. And so I was just like, screenshot, so good. It just made me so happy. This was also Donald Sutherland's first film role.
Oh wow!
He's very young. He plays. It takes place. It's like post-Napoleonic time. So he's wearing like a French sort of military uniform in it, but he's very goofy in it.
Does he look like Kiefer, like from Stand By Me, or
kind of, but not really? Fun fact about that: so the director and Donald Sutherland got along great. Like they became really good friends from this film. The director is Warren Kiefer. Donald Sutherland named his son after Warren Kiefer.
Wow, that's interesting.
And apparently there was some sort of controversy about Warren Kiefer directing it because he had come over to Italy to direct and had changed his name to an Italian pseudonym in order to be able to direct films. And so he hadn't got credit for it for a really long time, but he is officially given credit for directing this film now.
In the Eurocrypt set and everything.
Yeah. There's this one great scene in Castle Living Dead. Lee is giving a eulogy, and the last line of the eulogy that he says is a twinkle in his eye, and then it's a hard cut to another scene where a guy gets an arrow shot in his eye.
Nice.
It's perfect. I haven't gotten through. I watched one other one, which I'll get to in my next pick here, but there's a few other movies in that set, but so far I feel like Castle Living Dead, I might have started with the best one.
Yeah, I think I watched one that's in Eurocrypt. That's one of my picks here for Across the Pond.
Oh, okay. So LGBTQ was my pick. My pick was Crypt of the Vampire, which is also in the Eurocrypt. That one's 1964. And this is just a standard Carmilla story retelling of a woman comes to stay at a castle with a young girl and her father, and it turns out lesbian vampire situation, and
Nice.
it's okay. It has a few really cool elements to it, but nothing really makes it stand out aside from against all the other Carmilla retellings. There's this one thing that I would love to have in my house. They have a devil's hand candelabra. So it looks like a severed hand, like the devil's hand, and each of the fingertips is a candle on it.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, the maid's like carrying it around. I'm like, fuck yeah, I want one of those. So, I mean, Crypt of the Vampire is okay, but Castle Living Dead was really great. So what about you for LGBTQ?
So I picked Sometimes Aunt Martha Does Dreadful Things,
Mm-hmm.
directed by Thomas Casey, 1971. I've been meaning to watch this for a while. I was actually holding off to possibly, have this on an episode. But the whole premise is there's these two fugitives, and they flee Baltimore and head to Miami as they've been accused of killing a woman in Baltimore. One dresses up as a woman, acting like the other's aunt, and they live in this nice little neighborhood as they try to lay low and hide from the authorities. But people start figuring things out when killings start occurring. And the cast of characters in this are perfect. It's perfectly cast. That's why I think there's not a dull moment in it. Abe Zwick plays the Aunt Martha character. His name's Paul in the movie, but he plays Aunt Martha. And he looks, so many scenes, like especially when he pulls the wig off, he looks just like Andy Kaufman. And I kept seeing this is like Andy Kaufman could play this role. but I don't think he could have done it any better because this actor was just nailing every scene. He had me laughing. I don't know if there was any if there's any ad-libbing or creating their own dialogue, or if it was strictly by the script. But some of the stuff that he was just saying was just cracking me up. There's one scene where Aunt Martha, played by Zwick, where he's running, chasing Stanley, who's the other fugitive that's in hiding. He's chasing him with scissors, and he's very jokingly, very motherly, saying like, I'm going to cut your hair. We're going to cut your hair. It's too shaggy. And the Paul character, who's kind of dim-witted, he starts like freaking out and running around, and she just collapses on the stairway and just starts laughing like so much. I don't know. You definitely have to watch it, but just thinking about it, it just makes me laugh so much. It does get a little talky, but again, the characters are so into their performances that I was fully entertained the entire time. And then when the ending happens, it just snowballs into these unbelievably hilarious situations where you don't really believe what you're watching. They just kind of outdo each other over and over again until the very end. Mm. I totally recommend it. AGFA have the release out there that you can get from Vinegar Syndrome. It'll be there for Black Friday. And I haven't watched all the bonus stuff, but there are a ton of short films. There's some other features on there. I listened to a bit of the audio commentary by Evan Purcell, the queer film historian, and AGFA's Brett Berg. It was just really great. So I recommend everybody picking this up.
I've been holding off on it too because I was waiting for if we were going to do the episode or not. So, but I might just break into it sooner than later and then just rewatch it if we do.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was at too.
Okay.
I'm hoping to get Evan on at some point.
I'm sure we'll make schedules work one of these days.
It'll happen.
What about Daria Nicolodi?
Daria Nicolodi. So I went with Delirium.
It's our samesies.
Yay! So you brought it up. This was your pick for the double feature for Night Angel.
Yeah.
So we could just talk about it together.
Yeah.
I picked up the 88 Films Blu-ray. That's the one I watched.
Okay. I watched it on YouTube.
What? But yeah, Lamberta Bava. This centers around a fashion magazine where the cover girl models are just being murdered and picked off. Mm-hmm. And the murders are just kind of brilliantly horrifying in their own way. Especially, and this is what I wanted to talk to you about earlier. So when the women are killed, they have these disgusting masks on, these faces. One's an eyeball with, all the bloodshot eyes and the veins and stuff, which is apparently implied of how the killer sees them, right? That's what my understanding.
That's my understanding of it too, yeah.
And then one of them, it's not really a spoiler, but one of the models has this insect head.
Yeah.
And she's killed by bees, but to me, it looks like a moth head. Because it's got it's super fuzzy, and then the antenna are...
It's problematic for me.
Yeah, as soon as it popped up, I started typing, "Oh shit, Erica, moth head," because I know you hate moths.
I do.
But then she died by bees, and I was all, "Oh, maybe it was a bee head." But
see, if she would have died by like moth dust getting on her, because I'm assuming that's what happens when moths touch you. I don't let them touch me, but. I wouldn't have been able to sleep, but I was
talking
like,
about their powdery wings. And
yes.
stuff.
Oh God. oh, stop it. Oh my God.
I'm sorry. Erica.
Thankfully she died from bees. So I was like, okay, it's not a moth head. It's like a bee or something. But I love this movie. It's 87, late 80s. Like,
yeah. A lot of Italian horror regulars are in this because Stage Fright, Opera, Delirium all came out in 1987.
Yeah.
So you have David Brandon, who plays the director in Stage Fright. Mm-hmm. He plays Roberto, the photographer here. George Eastman.
Yep.
Of course, the great Daria Nicolodi.
Yes.
And Serena Grandi. Mm-hmm. She's the lead, and she is gorgeous.
Yes.
Like she gives me like Italian Debbie Harry vibes.
That's a good call.
And it's like it's the whole face. There's a lot of features and I love her.
Yeah,
fantastic. And your pairing with Night Angel, I thought was a solid pick. This is the first time I saw Delirium, so I kept, there's a lot of powerful women in the fashion industry, so I thought I kept thinking back on Crystal Eyes. Like it would kind of work with the Crystal Eyes double feature as well.
Yeah, good call.
One of my favorite scenes, though, was there's it's a fashion magazine, and there's these Iron Maiden Eddie masks that these people are wearing, and they're wrapped up like mummies.
Uh-huh.
And then the photographer is going full Austin Powers, like, "You're afraid, be afraid. Okay, now take your clothes off. Mummies, move close so you could feel her body heat." Yeah, that's it. Such a good scene.
So good. What did you give it on? Do you remember what you gave it on Letterboxd?
I gave it 3 stars.
Okay, that's fair.
I think there's a lot of slow filler in between.
Oh, yeah, there is.
It just kind of drags in a lot of places, but it's kind of needed because there's so many red herrings in this. Like, they're just popping up left and right, and they're like, okay, why are we focusing on this boring part?
Yeah, the creepy neighbor peeping Tom. Yeah. Oh my god! I'm like, I don't need a play-by-play of your masturbation. Thanks.
Yeah, that was a little much. There's a dick shot.
There is a dick shot. I always appreciate the dick shots. 1970s.
70s horror. What do you got?
Craze, 1974. Another one directed by Freddie Francis.
Nice.
Got a lot of recurring stuff going on in this episode. Jack Palance is an antique shop owner who worships an African god called Chuku. And he has this wood carving. It's about 3 feet tall of Chuku in the basement of his shop. And he believes that making sacrifices in Chuku's name will award him with wealth. So he kills someone. The first person that he ends up killing is more of an accident, and he ends up like finding money, and he's like, oh shit, look, Chuku is delivering, praise Chuku. So he starts killing more people and coincidentally coming into more and more money. And so it just kind of escalates. His partner / employee is kind of in on it with him, like he's helping him, but the police are very clearly onto him. But Palance is just so like sure of himself. He's like, oh no, like Chuku will save me from anything. I can do whatever I want. And
I want to hear him say Chuku.
Yeah, he does. It's just like that, literally. Jack Palance, I mean, he totally goes for it, and it's got some good kills. It's pretty okay overall. I gave it 2.5 stars, but with a heart, which means I'll probably rewatch it. It's got great fucking key art. Like if you look up the poster for it, you'll be like, oh, that's why Erica picked it, because she saw the poster and was like, oh, fuck yeah. I liked it, but it's just, maybe it's a 3-star, but I'd rewatch it at some point. So Craze, 1974. That was on YouTube. What about you, 70s?
1973, Scream Bloody Murder. So this has one of the greatest intros ever. I'm exaggerating, but
okay.
It starts off with this kid. They're on a farm, and he runs over his dad with a tractor on the farm. So they're out in the field working. The dad's working on the trailer or on the tractor. He jumps off to do something. The kid jumps on and runs over his dad. He randomly jumps off the tractor, the kid, and accidentally runs over his own hand.
Idiot.
Yeah, most kids are. Right? So this gives him a hook as an adult, later on in life when the movie goes on. So he now has a hook for a hand. But he goes to a hospital and is there for years. He gets his hook hand. He comes home, and his mom has since remarried. And the boy with the hook, his name's Matthew, he kills his mom's new husband and then accidentally kills his mom. And this is all in the first 10 minutes of the movie.
Wait, he's in the hospital for years because he lost his hand?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of like a sanitarium.
Oh, so he's like traumatized from losing his hand?
Well, and for killing his dad.
Oh, that too. That'll do it.
That might do something. And people, there might be implications too, like he's some sort of killer, but you don't really get that in the beginning.
Okay.
But when he comes out, he's he kills his mom, or accidentally kills his mom, kills the dad.
Yeah.
He has this very strong, weird Oedipus complex where you can tell.
Ooh, is there necrophilia?
There's not really. No. So he starts.
Okay.
He flees the city once he kills his mom, and he starts. He goes to like a nearby town, and he meets other women and just starts killing them because whenever he's talking to them, he sees Well, he mainly kills men because he sees like his stepdad, and he thinks like his stepdad's trying to take his mom.
Okay.
So the women he's fallen in love with, he ends up kidnapping this woman. He sees his mom in it. He changes her name.
How come you're standing like that?
Like what?
With your hand behind your back?
You don't hate me for it, do you? That I only have one hand?
Why would I hate you?
I don't know. Some people think it's sickening when they see someone who's not whole.
Oh, no, they don't. You're being dramatic.
They do. I see it in their faces. They get sick inside when they see that all I have for a hand is a hook.
Well, I don't get sick at all, inside or outside. And I'm not even going to ask you what happened to your hand either.
You're not? You don't care?
Well, sure I care. Only, the way I see it, I figure it's your hand, your story. If you want to tell me, you'll tell me.
You're a very special person, Daisy.
Well, thanks. But my name's not Daisy, it's Vera.
I'd like to call you Daisy. Is that okay?
Sure, it's okay. If you tell me why you have your hand behind your back.
I brought you something. A present.
You did? What is it?
Well,
Show me. Show me.
It's fucking fun.
Okay.
It's good. It has some pretty good kills in it. The main kid, this was like the main actor who plays this kid, or he's an adult at this point. He's super creepy. He plays completely out of his mind really well. This was his only credit, but it's by the same guys who wrote The Severed Arm, which was a Vinegar Syndrome. That's Mark B. Ray, who directed Scream Bloody Murder, and Larry Alexander, who wrote it. Angus Scrimm pops up as a doctor, and I actually took a picture with my phone. Look at him.
Oh.
And look, he's talking to the kid who's got his hook hand.
Yeah, I was like, is that Angus Scrimm's hook hand? Does he have one too?
He's in it for literally a couple of minutes, but he's his mom's, the kid's mom's doctor, and he's checking in on the mom.
Got it. Okay.
Like, where is she? But yeah, it's definitely worth watching. I watched it on Tubi. The quality was really bad.
Okay.
I don't know if there's a release out there, but I'd kind of like to see a release on this because I'll watch this one again for sure.
Nice. All right. What about Across the Pond?
Across the Pond. So I think this one's in the Eurocrypt. The Torture Chamber of Dr. Sadism.
Yeah.
1967.
Is that on Tubi?
It was on Prime.
Oh, okay.
Directed by Harold Raynal. It stars Lex Barker and Christopher Lee as Count Regula. He always has great names. Was it Drago?
Drago, yeah.
Yeah, he's good. So basically, it takes place in the olden times, and Count Regula is drawn and quartered for killing 12 virgins in his dungeon torture chamber. And 35 years later, he comes back from the dead to seek revenge on the daughter of his intended 13th victim to attain immortal life. So it sounds really badass. The opening segment where he's caught, and you get a glimpse into his torture chamber, but the scene where he's pulled apart by horses, it all happens, in the first couple of minutes. It's pretty gnarly to watch. And then the ending is fucking fantastic, but it drags a lot in the middle. Because at the end you get, a creepy ass zombie, Christopher Lee, and we get to see his work in his torture chamber. So it's definitely worth sitting through and watching everything to get to that point. Lex Barker plays like this gruff hero, very manly. And he's just he becomes kind of a caricature of, machoism. So it's fun to watch him too. But yeah, I recommend. I gave this one 2.5 stars. Across the Pond, what do you got?
I watched a movie called Contact, 1992.
Jodie Foster?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, of course. It's also known as The Touch. It's a Russian film. It's on YouTube with subtitles. So I think if you either search on YouTube for Contact 1992 or The Touch 1992, I don't remember, but it's on there. So it starts with a woman and her son found dead. She smothered him and then killed herself. The investigating detective meets the sister of the woman, the dead woman, and finds out that the father, their father, the sister and the mom, who's now dead, he's been dead for 12 years. And she says that he's responsible, like the grandfather / father is responsible. She says he is a Forzi, Forzi, which I think is some kind of Russian ghost, which make people believe that life is pain and agony and that the afterlife is the only thing to look forward to, which is their reason for why no one ever comes back from the dead, is because once they're there, they're
They
like,
don't wanna
oh,
leave.
this is great.
So you want to die.
Yeah. Anyway, so the detective and the sister fall in love right away, and her daughter gets sick and is about to die. So the detective, his name is Andre, he goes to the grave of the father and bargains with him to save the life of the little girl. And that's probably the best scene in the film because, well, I like the whole movie, but it's really cool because as the graveyard is right next to a train station, and you can hear these PA announcements like from the, I don't know, train announcements of like what's coming or whatever.
Right.
So he's talking to the gravestone, begging for the life of his girlfriend's daughter. I think they've gotten married now. So now his stepdaughter. As he's having this conversation, the PA voice changes and starts to be the voice of the grandfather speaking back to him.
Cool.
And bargaining with him and saying, okay, I'll save her life, but on one condition, you can no longer say your favorite phrase. And his favorite phrase is life is beautiful and amazing. So this movie is so fucking Russian that you can't even say the words that life is beautiful and amazing, or else you're fucking punished. So I saw some comments that this is Russia's Hereditary, and no, just because it's got a mood does not equal Hereditary. I think people just haven't seen enough movies for comparison. Plot-wise, I think it's more like the Lover's Vow segment in Tales from the Dark Side, because, you know, he has to, like, he can't say anything about this, otherwise things going to fall to shit. And so it's cool, like, from that point on, because you're like, ooh, is he going to say it? Is he not? What's going to happen if he does, kind of thing. And it's Russian, so it's super fucking depressing. So just, you know, if you're in the mood for that, I did like it. This is another one of my favorites from the month. But
Nice.
yeah, The Touch or Contact, 1992. And then Barbara Steele, Queen.
Yes.
I watched The Ghost, 1963. Directed by Ricardo Freda, who also did Horrible Dr. Hitchcock, which I think I've talked about on a previous episode, because that was the necrophilia one. So Barbara Steele and her doctor lover conspire to kill her husband for his fortune, but then strange things start to happen, and it seems like he might not really be dead. Barbara Steele is fantastic, and this is actually another Hitchcock iteration, because her husband and she's a Mrs. Hitchcock in this. So it's sort of like a recurring character, but with like different
roles
in it. So if I was comparing the two to, you know, between The Ghost and Horrible Dr. Hitchcock, I would go with Horrible Dr. Hitchcock, but that's because necrophilia. Of course, I'm going to pick that one. But it has a lot of commonalities too, because like in Horrible Dr. Hitchcock, they use curare which causes paralysis. And they use the same thing in this one too. So that's a little bit of a spoiler. Sorry. But that was on YouTube, 1963, The Ghost. What about you, Barbara Steele?
I watched Terror Creatures from the Grave.
Okay.
1965. This was a double feature night because I had watched Nightmare Castle earlier for my Italy pick. And this was on the same, it's actually a triple feature Severin release that I picked up. It also has Castle of Blood on it. Terror Creatures from the Grave, again, Barbara Steele, awesome as always. This is directed by Massimo Pupillo. And I had read that Pupillo was apparently not satisfied with the final result of this film, and he allowed the film's American producer, Ralph Zucker, to take the director's credit, which was a credit I saw on the Blu-ray.
Mm-hmm.
And Zucker allegedly shot some of the more gruesome scenes that occurs in in his version. And there are some pretty cool murders, a lot of severed hands and stuff like that. It's very, gothic horror, very atmospheric, shot beautifully in black and white. It's about a doctor who's murdered, and in death, he summons the souls of ancient plague victims to get revenge on those responsible for his death. And his daughter, who's played by Barbara Steele, realizes and knows of her father's powers and she tries to tell people, but no one believes her. So these murders start happening around her. For me, this whole story got a bit convoluted because then it starts involving like some lawyer who's there to, talk about his estate. And it became a little forgettable, honestly, except when the scenes popped up, like with these plague victims popping up, which, is pretty effectively creepy. But I do want to give this one another watch. Overall, I liked it mainly because of the atmosphere and how beautifully shot it was. It had a short 80-minute runtime. I want to watch it again. I gave it 3 stars though, because I was like in a Barbara Steele like freaking trance at that point.
Of course, yeah.
Because I started watching like a bunch of like her short like movies that I would find, like I would just Google Barbara Steele shorts, or I saw them on Letterboxd, so I started watching all these random like French movies she was in, like just her talking about like fur jackets and stuff, and there was no subtitles, and I was just like staring at Barbara Steele. So you can't go wrong with any Barbara Steele.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a good one. Hammer Time.
Hammer Time.
One of my faves. Dracula AD 1972.
Okay.
I've been wanting to see this one. I haven't. This was one of my favorite of the month. Loved it. Probably my favorite Dracula that I've seen so far. I think I've seen about 4 or 5 of them. This one's directed by Alan Gibson, who directed another Hammer Dracula, actually the follow-up to this one, The Satanic Rites of Dracula. We have Christopher Lee, obviously, back playing Dracula, and I think I love it so much because Peter Cushing is back as, well, he plays Van Helsing in the very beginning, but cut to 1972, he's a descendant, obviously. So this starts off in 1872. It's showing a battle between Dracula and Van Helsing, and they're both killed. Dracula's speared through like this carriage spoke, and he turns to ash, and Van Helsing is killed from the crash of the carriage. And there's this follower of Dracula that just kind of pops up in the background, and he collects the ashes of Dracula. So you cut to a century later, and it's, it's like Austin Powers, all these peace-loving hippies are, dancing around with all this, yeah, baby, And one of these young hippies, Jessica, is a descendant of Van Helsing. She plays Peter Cushing's granddaughter. And another one of these hippies is the descendant of that follower who picked up the ashes of Dracula. And his name is Johnny Alucard. So he persuades his hippie friends one night to go to this abandoned castle or this area, and they do this black magic ceremony, and he throws the ashes into this concoction that he's making, and he cuts one of the girls, and this resurrects Dracula. And when it happens, it's just like, fuck yes. Okay, this is exactly the movie I want right now. So the guy who plays Johnny Alucard, his name is Christopher Neame. He's in a lot of movies, but he gives this passionate performance, super evil, kind of reminded me of a Malcolm McDowell, like from, Clockwork Orange or something. He's just very diabolic. But, it's nothing like Peter Cushing. I mean, there were a few scenes where I was watching Peter Cushing where I actually I rewound it to watch his reaction all over again, because he is one of my favorite actors. But there's this one scene where he hears that his granddaughter, Jessica, might be linked to this recent murder of a woman whose blood is drained. Just the way he reacts when this detective shows up at his house and he's all, Jessica, why would you want to talk to her? And you could see like the fear and the concern in his eyes. And I just had to rewind it. It was so good. And that woman who was drained of blood is played by Carolyn Monroe. So the cast is stacked. It's great.
Yeah, that's right. It's been a few years since I've watched it. I have it, but it's a really shitty DVD copy. Where'd you watch it?
I think it was on HBO Max.
Oh, I don't have HBO.
Yeah.
You people in your streaming services. I'll have none of that.
I mean, too many I need to cancel. But HBO, they get a lot of Criterion stuff added. I don't have Criterion Channel.
Canopy has Criterion stuff.
Yeah, I should do that. But I've been happy with HBO. I want to watch Dune. But anyway, one thing that bugged me. So, I mean, it didn't bug me. I also watched The Monster Squad during October.
Okay.
There's a scene in, Dracula AD where Peter Cushing is sitting at his desk, and he suspects his granddaughter's friend Johnny is, up to no good and is evil in his ways. So he writes out Alucard, which is Dracula backwards.
Oh, you posted about this.
Yeah. So he starts, moving all the letters, and it's Dracula, and he's like, oh my God. So I watched the Monster Squad recently, and all the kids seem to like. They even have like some Hammer horror films up in their little treehouse,
Yeah.
and they seem to know all about horror movies and Dracula. So when the main kid gets a call and the and the message that's left is some Professor Alucard asked him, to buy this book.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, why didn't he get it right then and there?
Because he's a kid and he's a fucking idiot.
I knew you'd have the fucking answer. But yeah, I mean, this was one of my favorite movies of the year.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Dracula 80, 1972. I think I did watch it on HBO.
Okay.
So good. It all just worked for me. Hammer time, Erica.
One movie I forgot to mention in Across the Pond was I watched the German Chainsaw Massacre, which is on Prime.
It's called the German Chainsaw Massacre?
Well, it's on Prime under The Blackest Heart, but if you look up German Chainsaw Massacre on Letterboxd, that's what it is.
Nice.
And I watched that for Udo Kier.
How many more?
I need 7 more, which I can do. If I'm just like, okay, I'm going to set aside one day and do a marathon, I can knock out 5.
Yeah.
And then I'll have like 1 or 2.
I think Swan
sprinkled around.
Song's still supposed to come out this year.
Okay, that's like one of the ones I'm waiting for. Everything else at this point, besides a few, like I gotta download Spermula, and then there's a couple other Spermula, hell yeah. And then I'm gonna just do a few rewatches just to get to. Oh my god, I'll make it. It's fine. But yeah, I watched that one. I don't recommend it to anybody. German Chainsaw Massacre. It's not good. It's just people screaming for I don't know how long. Anyway, Hammer time. I went way back and did Hammer's very first horror film.
No way.
Mystery of the Mary Celeste, 1935, starring Bela Lugosi. It's okay. It's basically I think it's, when it comes up on, I watched it on YouTube. When it came up, it was also called The Phantom Ship, because basically they put a crew together to go sail somewhere, and Lugosi is like this drunken sailor who is missing an arm because a shark bit it off in a previous voyage, which I love. Like, so he's just got like the floppy like sleeve flying around. There's not really any mystery about who the killer is. Like once you start watching it, like people just start getting picked off one by one on it. But it's also very unclear, like who's dying, and they all happen off screen and within a very short period of time. So you don't really know who's who. So, I mean, Hammer grew quite a bit, and they, but it's a fun watch. It's short. It's like 60 minutes long, and Lugosi is fun in it. So, I mean, I would say probably for Hammer completists only, though.
And is Bela Lugosi really good in it?
Yeah. I mean, he's fun in it. Like, he's not in it that much, though. When he's on, though, he's fun.
Yeah.
There's a cute little cat, cute little black cat on the ship, too. Uh-huh. So, yeah. There's that.
I wish I had like a little peg leg, the cat.
Oh my god, that'd be so cute. So then Haunted House. I watched.
We're getting to our last 2. Okay.
Yeah, we're almost done. So I watched a movie that I thought was going to be a haunted house movie, and it turned out it really wasn't, but I still really liked it. So it was called The Damned House of Hajin. That's Hajn, 1989. This movie is a Czech film. I watched it on rarefilm.com or Cave of Forgotten Films. So Peter marries into this wealthy but mentally disturbed family. And he moves into this huge house, and it's got great atmosphere, like foggy, out in the middle of nowhere, like huge mansion house. So I was like, oh, damned house. And like I saw pictures and I was like, that looks like a haunted house movie.
Yeah, I mean the title alone, I think.
Yeah. But the damned house part of it is basically the people, not the house, which, I mean, that comes up in horror movie and haunted house movies where, you're like, oh, it's not the house, it's the people.
Right.
So it's just a much more mentally disturbed version of that. They have this uncle who lives in the attic. So there's another recurring theme, people living in the attic. But he thinks he's invisible. So he creeps around the house, like scaring people. But he eventually gets taken away, and Peter, the guy who married into the family, his wife starts acting the same as him, the uncle who got taken away. And so he's starting to be like, fuck, what did I marry into? Like this whole family is just like out there. And he's trying to figure out a way to keep it together so that he can stay in the family because they're very well off. But eventually it starts sort of breaking down. So this movie is beautiful. It has lots of gold lighting. I've talked before about opening credit artwork in movies like The Rat Savior and
sometimes I didn't mention it, but sometimes Aunt Martha Does Dreadful Things has really cool credits too.
Nice, yeah. So this one has really great opening artwork, and also the art that the uncle, the guy who thinks he's invisible, paints all over his room is fantastic as well. So I wouldn't recommend it if you're looking for a haunted house movie, but it is a really good, gorgeous art house film.
Cool.
So, Damned House of Hajin, 1989. It's on Rare Film. That's 2ms.com. Haunted House, Lance.
Okay. So I went with Hillbillies in a Haunted House. 1967. I had first heard about this when I saw Joe
Bob. He talked about it
Yeah.
in his Redneck Saved Hollywood thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's when I added it to my watch list, which was a couple of years ago. And it was added to, I think it was added to like Hulu or it's on Prime. Maybe it was on Prime. I don't have it here, but directed by Gene Yarbrough. He did She-Wolf of London, The Devil Bat, and a ton of Abbott and Costello films from the 40s and 50s. So I knew I was getting into some really good slapstick comedy. But it's about these country performers, and they're heading to Nashville to play a jamboree. And there are three of them. One of them his name's Jeepers. He's the kind of the tour business manager of the group. And then there's Woody Weatherby, who's like this Johnny Cash type character. And he's played by Ferlin Husky. And all these apparently are really like performers. Like they were really into the country scene at some point, and they kind of became actors while we're still performers. And then there's Boots Malone, who's the female singer in the group. And the tour manager, Jeepers, he's really uptight about, traveling to Nashville. So they look for a place to relax for a night. And they stop by the haunted Beauregard house. Yeah, the cast just start like singing randomly, like at any point in time, which I found funny as hell. The songs were super catchy too. But what was the biggest surprise is once they get into the house, hiding in this house is Basil Rathbone and John Carradine.
That's right. I remember him talking about him.
And they play these evil crooks that are involved in like this espionage against the country. So all this shit's being thrown at you. And then out pops Lon Chaney Jr. They're hiding out in the in the basement of this haunted mansion, and they're trying to steal rocket fuel, this rocket fuel formula.
Mm-hmm.
And Chaney Jr. has this giant gorilla named Anatoly in a cage, and it's just some guy in a gorilla suit jumping around, wanting bananas and stuff. So they're hiding out there, and they've rigged the house so that it appears haunted, so nobody would come into their hideout and stuff and like live there. But real ghosts start appearing. So it's kind of all over the place. I found it really funny. Most people won't. I guarantee that.
Yeah.
Merle Haggard pops out. Sonny James, Molly B, the lady who sang "I Saw Mommy Kissing Santa Claus."
Oh, okay.
They each pop out and play a song. This whole thing just had my head bopping and my face smiling. Stupid haunted house fun with country music. I mean, It was. What did I said? Come for the ghost, stay for the jamboree. Because at the end, you get almost like a 15-minute concert at the end of all these people. They finally make it to Nashville.
All right.
And there's nothing haunted about it. I could talk about this movie forever. Yeah, check it out. Hillbillies in a Haunted House.
All right.
And now our free space.
Yeah.
So I went with Night of the Demons 2.
Oh, okay.
1994. Last year I picked Night of the Demons as my free space, which is the perfect Halloween movie. I rewatched that recently for the Joe Augustine episode. Mm-hmm. Don't worry, I'm not going to pick part 3 for next year.
Thank you.
I watched that. That movie's garbage. I also watched the 2009 Night of the Demons remake, which I didn't like very much.
I made it 5 minutes into that and turned it off.
It's pretty bad, yeah. So this one's directed by Brian Chinchard Smith.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also the Australian director who did Turkey Shoot, Leprechauns 3 and 4, and Dead End Drive-In.
Man from Hong Kong.
And obviously, it's co-written by Joe Augustine. The big one here, though, is music by Jim Manzi. Do you recognize that name, Erica?
No.
1994. He did the scores for most of Jeff Burr's films,
Oh.
like Leatherface, Pumpkinhead 2, From Whisper to Scream, and Night of the Scarecrow. Bam!
Okay.
It all comes back. But this sequel follows Angela's little sister, Melissa, who's staying at a Catholic school. And the reason she's there is it's really funny because it's just brought up in passing, is because her parents supposedly received this homemade Halloween card that had like dead bugs on it and dried blood. And it was signed by Angela, their daughter Angela, after she was, killed from the first movie. So they were both so distraught they committed suicide. So Melissa is at this Catholic school, and all these kids are banned from the Halloween party because of I forgot what they did, but they sneak out and they go to the Hull House, and they freak out a bit because the Hull House is obviously freaky. They go back to the school, and one of the girls that was at the Hull House, she finds the lipstick that Linnea Quigley's character had in the first one.
But that went in her boob.
Well, I guess when she died or maybe dissolved or something, I don't know, but the lipstick's there on the floor, and it's very awkward because she picks it up and immediately starts applying it. Like, who finds lipstick on the ground and starts putting it on, right?
That's how you get. Ew.
Anyway, she leaves the Hull House, so that means she crosses that underground stream from the first one. So the demons are now at this Catholic school, and there's this nun. And this one student, he's actually the kid, the boy in Tremors. I don't know if you remember him, but he's got this face that's very recognizable. They suit up. They suit up with like these squirt guns filled with holy water and crucifixes. Like it's basically a scene from like Schwarzenegger gearing up in Commando. They're all it's that stupid little.
Don't the Lost Boys do that? Don't they put like holy water and squirt guns?
So it's very funny you say that, because this whole movie becomes very Lost Boys to me. 100%. And it's not just because of like, the same, they have garlic and stuff like that. It's mainly because the demons, to me, they were just vampires. So it's holy water, it's crucifixes, sunlight kills them. It became very weird in that regard to me. They weren't demons or more vampires. But Steve Johnson, who did the effects for the first Night of the Demons, he did the effects here. And holy shit, there's this one scene where Angela turns into a giant snake. And it's not CGI or anything. It's just amazing makeup and this, prosthetics that looks super fucking cool. But then it starts getting into like this religious aspect again, kind of like, what was Dracula's Risen from the Dead or
Grave, yeah.
Grave. I enjoyed it overall. So 3 stars, Night of the Demons 2. I've watched all the Night of the Demons movies. I recommend part 1 and 2. What do you have for free space?
I assumed we were doing the same thing for this because you and I both went to Dismember the Alamo on Halloween. So I just assumed like we would just be talking about that. But so
that was fun.
It was. I'm still reeling a little bit because for listeners, Dismember the Alamo is an annual marathon that Alamo Drafthouse does in October.
It was canceled last year.
It was canceled last year. They did have secret screenings every Saturday in theater. I went to 1 or 2 of them.
Oh, last year?
Yeah. Luke Fulci's Enigma was one of them. And then, I remember I talked about the Starring Hearts Against Back. Right. Dark and the Wicked, fucking stupid ass movie, was another one.
Yeah, previous years, Dismember the Alamos are 4 or 5 movies.
Right. All day thing.
Yeah.
This year, and so I thought it was an all day thing. And so I was all like prepared for that. Lance and I were going, and then he came over and he was like, "Oh yeah, it's just 2." And I was like, "What?" And I didn't even realize it when I bought my ticket. I just thought like, "Oh, they're making it cheaper because hardly anyone is really going to go."
Seats and stuff.
And no, it was just 2 movies. So I was like, well, I guess I can wear a costume then, which is,
Excellent costume.
Thank you. I already took my picture down because I did not fucking even make it as a finalist into the costume contest. So I took my picture down.
What?
Yeah. Anyway, so the 2 movies, not 4 or 5 that we saw at Alamo. Yeah. I'm not bitter. I'm happy we got to go and do that. But Boarding House.
Yes.
Fucking A. This just came out, the restoration. Vinegar Syndrome, I don't know if it's going to be part of their sale since it's one of their brand new ones. I don't think it'll be half
Probably
price.
not. Yeah.
But definitely recommend picking it up. Lance and I had seen this previously at a Terror Tuesday at least a few years ago.
Oh yeah, at least like 4 years ago.
At least. I remember this was
5.
like one of the like long time ago that I remember watching.
Yeah,
And
it's an old one.
so Boarding House is best watched with a group of people because the sheer nonsense of the film will just be pure joy to you. It is low budget, just, keep that in mind. But it's basically about a guy who inherits a house and he decides to rent out the rooms and make it into a quote unquote boarding house and is basically only opening it up to young, attractive women who will parade around in their bathing suits or naked. And
Well, he's in his like leopard skin Speedo.
oh yeah, he's flinging that banana hammock around. And
one of the main girls reminded me a lot of Rosanna Arquette,
yeah,
like big time.
yeah. So there's some evil doings going on. I can't explain the plot.
He practices moving objects with his mind.
Oh, that's right.
Usually, I mean, the important things seems to be like to maybe move the bar of soap from his tub and make it fly.
Right.
So a girl in the house, he kind of trains her, tells her about this. And she goes to the library, gets a bunch of books. So she starts dabbling in it. Her whole motives for this new power are way more evil.
Yeah. It's super fun, guy.
It's really fun.
I can't recommend it enough. If it's not part of the Vinegar Syndrome sale, maybe wait till the next one. But or just pick it up, whatever. And then, the second movie in the double feature was Bubba Hotep.
Yeah, I hadn't seen Bubba Hotep in, once before, and that was so long ago.
I saw it when it came out, and I was like, that was fine.
Yeah, I liked it. I think it's fun. There was a Q&A afterwards that was terrible.
Yeah, so Boarding House, yay. Bubba Hotep, I'm a take it or leave it on it. It's fine.
I think they're both fun.
All right, so that's it. Horror Gives Back. Woo! Did it.
Yeah, thanks again for everybody participating, for the, us exceeding our goal like we did. That was completely, I don't know, put a huge smile on my face. I'm blown away by it. So thanks again, Robert, Tad, Sally, Mike, John, Henry, Matt, Cody, Austin, Micah, Josh, and a few anonymous donations.
Yeah. Also, thanks to my company for matching my donation. Woo.
Yeah.
That's why I was like,
awesome.
I did $92, but I'm like, my company's going to match my donation. So yeah.
Let's do it all again next year.
Heck yeah. We'll be doing this again next year. We might post categories a little bit earlier next year, because I know some folks had mentioned like they had already had their list put together when ours came out.
True, yeah.
Which, it's
fine.
Yeah, no, you don't have to follow ours. It doesn't matter. But we might put it out a little bit earlier because I was already planning my list before our list came out. So
same.
If you're not already, you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and Slasher, all at Unsung Horrors. You can follow me on Letterboxd, Instagram, and Twitter at Hex Massacre. And we'll have in show notes links to both of our Letterboxd watch lists for Horror Gives Back, so you can find those quickly on there for reference. Lance?
I'm on Letterboxd, Instagram, and Twitter at L Shivey.
Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll be back next episode for our second pick for No Rules November.
Madman, No Rules November.
Thanks for listening, y'all. Night.
Bye.
You're listening to the Prescribed Films Podcast Network, home to hundreds of hours of free podcast entertainment. The shows on this network all have a common goal: providing you with the best discussions about movies and other forms of entertainment media. The PFPN hopes to fill your earholes with audio joy. Visit our website with links to all the other amazing shows at www.thepfpn.com. Thanks for listening.